Oh, we are a poor country. We are poor not in terms of resources and potential. Ọ̀tọ̀ ni ọlá resources. Ọ̀tọ̀ ni ọlá kí ni tá ti fi resources. In terms of what we are, of the money that we make, in terms of what's available for us to spend as a country, we are poor. Now, it shouldn't be, because this country is blessed. That is the misfortune of, almost like Nigeria, the natural disaster. Our own disaster is in the form of what? Our leaders. Earthquake in Nigeria. Our weather is solid. We have land. We have population. And we have natural resources. Exploit. And yet, we are poor. Anyway, we will get into the context of why this had to be done. But on this slide, in the government's rule, when they said, look, let us reform our tax laws. Number one is to create an equitable atmosphere for the collection of taxes. So some people have sat down and they realized that balance in our taxation. Let us make it more balanced. I give a good example. In Nigeria, free trade zone category. Now, the concept of free trade zone is that we are designating a part of Nigeria and we are making it look like a place that is outside of Nigeria for the purpose of taxes, such that the free trade zone one is on tax lórí. Àbí tàbá sọ pé Lekki, for instance, free trade zone ni. Adẹ̀fẹ́ kó dàbí ìgbà pé Lekki yẹn kò sínú Nigeria for the purpose of taxes. Ṣé àmọ̀ pé intermal term bẹ́ẹ̀ a lè gba tax bẹ́ẹ̀ because à ń sọ pé kò sínú Nigeria. At a designated as a free trade zone. Up until now, the entire United Arab Emirates is a free trade zone. On some tax in there. Right? Now, but you want that free trade zone, the idea was, let us develop those areas. So, that free trade zone, see, every free trade zone, Lagos free trade zone and Lekki free trade zone. Àkọ́kọ́ ni pé a fẹ́ encourage development in those areas. Èkejì, a fẹ́ kí wọ́n produce, kí ṣe business, kí wọ́n tà outside Nigeria. Kọ́dẹ̀ gba foreign exchange wọlé fún wa. What has happened over the years is that àwọn tó lọ ń dá business lẹ̀ nínú free trade zone yẹn, tí wọ́n bá ti produce tán, wọn kì í gbé lọ sí outside of Nigeria. So forex, dollars, the government fẹ́ kí a máa fẹ́ pa wọlé. Now, between you and I, if you are in the custom, so a máa ń pè ibi táwa yìí ní custom territory. Gbogbo ibi táwa pé kò sí ní free trade zone, a máa ń pè ní custom territory. Between you and I, tí máa ń produce milk ní custom territory, èèyàn kan máa ń produce ní free trade zone. Tó bá dẹ̀ produce milk yẹn tán, tó tà sí àdúgbò wa bí báyìí. Tàbá dáadáa, you would realize that you cannot compete with that person because ẹni tó wà free trade zone kò ní san tax. And to what there you can the custom territory, one some tax. So the guy in the free trade zone can afford to reduce his price because he's not paying any tax. So offer the equitable. Then at the so I don't want to bore some of these examples, but clearly there were gaps in our Nigerian tax system. Because I'm taking my time to explain this because about to borrow tax. What comes to mind is pé ọ̀fẹ́ gbé tax lọ sókè. Gbogbo ẹ̀kọ́ ni ọ̀rọ̀ pé tax lọ sókè. Sometimes it's about ensuring that the level playing field, the playing field is level. Okay, ó ní àwọn incentives kan tá ti fún àwọn businesses láti 1930, 1940, 1950 tí gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì wò pé ó dà ní pé kò ní ìdíkà give incentive yìí mọ́. So for instance, a ní tó ń pè ní income brought into Nigeria. from investment outside Nigeria. Again, àwọn òfin yìí á ṣe because a fẹ́ encourage dollar inflow. So if you have rent from abroad, interest from abroad, because it's in dollar, a máa ní kẹ́ máa san tax lórí. So because I say pé ó ti tó àsìkò ká yọ àwọn kìíní kúrò. Tẹ́ bá wo exchange rate system wa, lọ́kàn ṣẹlẹ̀ recently nígbà tí president wọlé, there's liberalization. The gap between the official market and the parallel market is now more closer than ever. So government is looking beyond to make a foreign income after exempted from taxes. So again, not to bore you, the idea is that are there opportunities for one to carry, let us reform the tax system. Then, after we reduce taxes, and that's why we stand down to understand exactly what the tax law is saying. Most people, because of the misinformation and disinformation, forget all misinformation and disinformation, you can want deliberate, you can want inadvertent. Right? They won't spread the falsehood. Now, because of the misinformation and disinformation, most people do not know that as an individual, as an employee, for most of us, listen to the chairman tax committee, 90% of us will see a reduction in our taxes. And that's the reality. Because new tax table, if you earn below 25 million naira, your taxes will go down from next year. You may look at 25 million naira a year. Per year. Individuals. I mean, this is the country only by conscious research only about some years ago. On our only above 500,000 accounts, pay by 5% low. Pay 500,000 to Jugus accounting. Right? So clearly, I mean, it's about 25 million a year. We call it 500,000 account. So if 5% of us only can boast of 500,000 in our account, it shows that clearly above 90% of us are earning up to 25 million a year. Now, if that is true, it therefore means that a reduction in our personal income taxes based on the table. Because tax tax, you expect that just okay. Tax, the biggest challenge that the government has today is because the social contract is broken. We don't trust the government. And you can't blame us for it. That being said, the new tax law is not just about increasing taxes, it's about creating level playing field, it's about reducing taxes in some areas, and definitely taxes are going up in some areas. If the tax is okay, I would want to avoid it because our company income tax, and I'm sure that this conversation would benefit us most as individual and business owners. But clearly, I want you to tax my loss okay. I want you to tax my loss. So, interpretation, reform. Now, why is tax suddenly becoming a big deal? It's very important for our understanding so that our not really much alive. More than ever, tax is becoming a serious issue in Nigeria. If you follow history in Nigeria, Igbakon used to be an agricultural giant. We were surviving on agriculture. Cocoa house, what is such a cocoa house now? What you can call to job cocoa. Oh, we were balling. Kalo language is street language. We were doing very well on agriculture until we discovered oil. And then, of course, the rest of the story. After agriculture, I bought easy money. Now, ṣe wá rí ọ̀rọ̀ epo wá from 1956 or so when it was first discovered àbí báwọn ṣe kọ́ wa up until the last 5 years wọn la fẹ́ survive, but the landscape is changing. Èyí tí epo ń ṣe fún wa kò ṣe fún wa mọ́ o, owó tá à ń rí ń bẹ̀ ààrẹ mọ́ o, wàhálà ti wà. Ṣé ẹ gbọ́ mi? I need feedback, please. Are you with me? Please, I can understand why we are where we are today. We're not just coming to say, on debit bank account, on debit bank account. We should understand the economy. Owó tá à ń rí lórí epo ààrẹ mọ́ for several reasons. And that is why tẹ́ bá dẹ̀ wo ìlú wa yìí, without any apologies, tẹ́ bá rí àwọn government wa, èyí tó bá rọrùn ló máa ń fẹ́ o, àwọn ṣiṣẹ́ agbára. Nigerian governments over the years have proven to be intellectually lazy. Easy money. Àwọn kò kọ́kọ́ ní rent seeking. Ó dání sí ìgbà tá a discover pé ó wà ń bí. Eléyìí tó yẹ kí government wọlé kó ra equipment, kó ṣe mining, kó explore, kó ṣe gbogbo ẹ̀ fúnra ẹ̀. Kí ni government wọn máa ṣe? Wọ́n fún àwọn èèyàn ní license. Wọ́n á dàgbà gbé kí ni wọ́n máa gba licensing fee. Wọ́n á dàgbà gba kí ni share of profit. Ṣàmì pé tó bá náà ìgbẹ́ Nigeria government ló wá síbi tẹ́pọ̀ wà tó ṣe everything, ṣàmì pé 100% of the revenue ti wá ní. But because à ń ṣiṣẹ́ agbára. Ẹ̀bùn tó ṣẹlẹ̀ pẹ̀lú our mining industry, same thing is happening. A ní minister for mining, right? It's just there for administrative ni. Gbogbo bí tí àwọn resources yìí wà kí láti ṣe, licenses have been issued. And some, because of our porous nature, àwọn olómi kan tètè wọ́n extract àwọn resources yìí illegally, àwọn Chinese. Some people will tell that part of the security problem ta nílé ní resources wà níbẹ̀, resource harvest ó pẹ̀lú. So our governments have proven to us time and again pé wọn kì í ṣiṣẹ́ agbára. Now, how did that happen? How did that play out pẹ̀lú ọ̀rọ̀ epo? That played out in the sense that we relied on global oil giants. Abi, the Shell, the Mobiles, the Total, can we explore? They should JV, joint venture. I don't share profits. But today, the global oil industry is witnessing a shift. There are pressures to divest from dirty energy to clean energy, renewable energy. Beyond that, Nigeria is a security problem. Kidnap or expatriate lady, kidnap expatriate Lola. Beyond that, our regulatory environment was unpredictable. All of these factors, in Germany, in the past 5 years, 5 oil companies on the Nigeria. And these guys are the people bringing in the money to come and explore. Because or epo, explore. Then some of our oil assets are aging. Abandonment, the commission, close to explore. So, at explore for 30-40 years. Of course, money end of their life. To explore. Exploration is capital intensive. So, problem to one is oil revenue on deep drastically. Beyond the oil giants living the economy, are they pay time for them? Maybe today, and the check for you, probably selling for $60 a barrel. In 30 Riyadh above 100. That tells you clearly that 40% of revenue is gone. In Tantat, 110 at some point. That in 50, how much about the one in Tasha will 55, 60 Lamata. Yet to work. Beyond that, kilo to wash. Nítorí ìnákúnà we have now seen a situation where a ti wá ṣe nǹkan tó ń pè ní forward sales. Ṣe rí epo tá àti wà á ti tà ó. A ti tà á ti fi yáwó. À ń pè ní forward sales. Crude oil backed loans. So tẹ́ bá follow story ìgbà tí Dangote dé lára supply issue tó kọ́kọ́ ní ni pé bó ṣe fẹ́ allocate supply crude oil fún tó fẹ́ máa refine because a ti fi epo wa yáwó gbogbo ẹ̀kọ́ lọ́n fún Dangote. You know, so we are in a big revenue problem. And because, like I said, without apologies, our government, they are intellectually lazy. Kí ló kù tó máa ṣe nígbà tí a máa rí kó dáa epo kò ké bó ṣe ń ké àbí ẹyẹ epo kò pé bó ṣe ń ké. The next thing is tax. The next thing is tax. Let me shock you. Are you aware that today, in the course of this year, State House press release, government fund has pay 75% of owó táwọn tó pa has come from non-oil revenue. Imagine that non-oil is accounting for 75% of our revenue. Fẹ́ pé epo ìkan ló fún 25%. Tàbá dẹ̀ sọ non-oil revenue 90% ṣe tax ló jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀. Ètò kù bóyá royalties, licenses, nǹkan owó táwọn MDC, Ministry, Department and Agency tó ń pa, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, àwọn tó ń nu private jet, Babalola, à ń ṣe nǹkan and all that. So this government is surviving on tax. Previous government, sí eléyìí tó wọlé, àwọn náà survive on tax, but beyond tax, kí la lè pọ́n tó ṣe? Wọ́n tẹ́wọ́. They were printing money. Eléyìí tó ń pè ní ways and means. We can't do that. So lóòótọ́ ìjọba yìí ṣe a lot of reforms, and like you keep saying, they are painful reforms. There are some things that we could not just continue if we don't want to have a failed state. Lè máa tẹ́wọ́ lọ mọ́, ṣé ìyẹn wá jẹ́ solution? Àti tẹ́wọ́ ìdí ìṣẹ̀bí íǹkì àti machine ló need, but ìyàtọ̀ máa jẹ́ ń bẹ̀. Ìjà mọ̀ pé àwọn ìlú kan tó ti tẹ́wọ́ recklessly, ó dé stage kan tó yẹ kẹ́yẹ̀ máa rówó lẹ̀lẹ̀. Tí ò ní value mọ́. It's possible. The fact that money has value today is because it is relatively scarce. Ó dé stage kan tó ń pa àwọn ìlú tó ń tẹ́wọ́ recklessly, owó máa wà lẹ̀lẹ̀. Because mélòó lẹ fẹ́ ṣàgbọ́n tá máa fi ṣá gbogbo ẹ̀tàn bóyá ló lè ra omi. Lè débẹ̀. So this government said, look, ways and means, lè ṣe. Tax náà, wọn náà lọ máa tún padà lọ́wọ́ bá ṣe lè ṣe tó yẹn pé we will reform it and use it to stimulate economic development. So, tax is becoming a very serious conversation. So, like I said, we're not just coming to talk about ṣé tó bá wọnú account mi, ṣé wọ́n máa tax mi àbí àwọn yẹn á dáhùn gbogbo yẹn, but ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ understand ibi tí ìlú yẹn lọ. Nigeria is a poor country, not in potential, not in resources, but in terms of what is available. Ẹ jẹ́ fún yín ní context. Ṣẹ́rí a máa ń sọ pé owó wa ń jì ní òun ò ṣe kárí. Ẹ jẹ́ ká assume pé ní 2025 yìí, government sọ pé you know what, we want to take a different approach to governance. Àtẹ̀ṣe budget wọn, owó tá a máa pa lọ́dún yìí, a fẹ́ pín ní ọwọ́ oníkálukú wa, everybody gba tiẹ̀, ètò báwọn kò lọ fi ṣe. Kò sá tó ń ṣèlú bẹ́ẹ̀ wá kan sọ ní pé ká ní pé a fẹ́ test system yẹn o. We want to give everybody their own share of our national revenue. Go and do what you like with it. Mo fẹ́ ká get èlò lọ́nà pọ́nì kankan ló wá máa gbà. á tó bí èlò tẹ́yìn kọ́kọ́ máa gbà tàbá ní ká pín owó ìlú yìí àwọn annual revenue ni. So mo ń gbọ́ 10 million. Another answer? Hello? 10,000 naira. Kí ló dé? 30 million. Okay, so the truth is, tabalika gbówó ìlú lórí owó nìkan kan ló wà lọ́wọ́. I mean annual revenue owó tàn pa lọ́dọọdún. Èèyàn kọ̀ọ̀kan wa based on 2025 budget á gba 160,000 naira lọ́dún. Ẹjọ́, are we poor or not? Because bẹ́ẹ̀ ni o, kò wọ́n bí sọ́ọ̀. Are we poor or not? 160,000 naira kò tó ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ara data o. In a year, data. In a year. So we are poor. Àwọn pè ní per capita income. And that's about $1, just a bit over $100. Lówó tà ń sọ yìí. Gbogbo àmà gbà lọ́dọọdún. Kí la máa fi ṣe? Compare that with a country like Singapore. Each citizen á gba $92,000. Àwọn ìlú mi wà Iceland $100,000. $100,000. That's 150 million naira. How many àwọn ìlú kan pé okay, àwọn fẹ́ pín owó tó máa pa. Àwọn ọ̀ṣọ́ náà ṣe títí hàn ṣe náà ṣe ní wọn fund hospital kákò tí pè lẹ́yìn lọ́wọ́. Per capita income ìlú mi ẹ̀kọ́ kan gba 150 million naira lọ́dún. As Nigerians a máa gba 160,000 naira lọ́dún. So we have a problem. Problem that should continue because again I'm asking as of mining assets àtúntò kó license láwọn èèyàn lọ́wọ́ because the government ìsọkúsọ ni pé government has no business doing business. Laziness. If you have an efficient system, you can do business for the benefit of everybody. Government can do business in the interest of everybody. Ṣèbá ní àti ní airplane rí, àti ní airline rí, àti ní telecommunication business rí. Gbogbo owó tẹ́tì ń palẹ́ nìyẹn sí yẹn. Àwọn kan lónìí. Imagine if we run that system efficiently. Tó bá possible, our security gan wọ́n tún outsource it. I mean, at the height of insurgency, our contract nationality now, táwọn bá wà ń jà. So it is out of inefficiency to say that we have no business doing business. Yes, economy can be private sector led, true, we agree. But government can still do business in the interest of majority because in terms of capitalism, kò láàánú. Profit maximization. So we have a problem. We have a revenue problem, and because we will not think outside the box as a people, the next thing, the easiest thing to touch, we want the tax. So tax is going to play an increasing role from now till for a long time. Tax conversation is going to be more dominant than ever. Ejeka were prepared, not just for today, but for a long time to come. So, kilo one change pàtó in the new tax laws. A lè pín sí méjì, àwọn tó ní láti jọmọ́ companies, àwọn tó dé affect individuals and entrepreneurs. Mo ń wò bá ká máa sọ̀rọ̀ nípa ètò jọmọ́ complaints. I think the interest. Any? Okay, so we'll talk about. Okay. Very briefly, we'll talk about how it impacts companies. Àkọ́kọ́ ni pé a máa ń pè nǹkan ní small company. Àwọn tó wọn ò pọ̀, government ní òun ò fẹ́ fi tax pa wọ́n. The threshold for now used to be 20 million. 20 million in a year is a small threshold. Government increased it to 50 for small companies. 50 million.
Anything less than
Revenue. 50 million and below is defined as small company. Only get massive tax. If you have a company, the annual turnover is 50 million and below. Only come as on tax. Company ni mo pe o, ṣe mo pe yàtọ̀ wà láàrin company àti business name, ventures, enterprises. Company lè tó máa ní LTD lẹ́yìn. Àwọn èèyàn ní company o. Tẹ́ bá lọ dá business lẹ̀ Tunji Ventures. Ìyẹn àwọn ṣe company business name ló ń pè ìyẹn kọ́ là ń sọ́n bí o àwọn limited là ń sọ́n bí yàtọ̀ pé gbogbo wa sí ètò náà là ń lọ but ọ̀tọ̀ ni business name registration ọ̀tọ̀ ni company ni limited. No àsọ̀rọ̀ pa wọn. So àwọn companies ọ̀ní tí revenue tí ò bá ti ju 50 million wọ́n sọ tax rárá tẹ́lẹ̀ kí ni 20 million wọ́n sọ di 50. Ẹjọ́ ṣé tax lọ sókè làbọ̀ ń lọ sílẹ̀? Yàtọ̀ pé it is a win for around Thomas sọ pé look turnover in a year 50 million and below mass tax as opposed to 20 million. Lára draft bill tari àwọn kan ṣe ní 100 million annual turnover 100 million as a company don't pay tax but wọ́n tún adjust ẹ̀ wọ́n tún jà wá less than 50. So tẹ́ bá wò ẹ́ rí pé it's a positive kìíní fún wa fún àwọn tó máa ń ṣe tọ́ní kan pẹ̀lú pé gbogbo èrè wọn kò ju 40 million lọ. So àwọn ta ní school tí tọ́nà bá wá tí ò bá ju 50 million lọ ní business pẹ̀lú tax. Right? So that's number one. Number two, a máa ń pè nǹkan kan ní capital gains tax. Ìyẹn ni pé tá a bá ta asset shares, motor vehicles, whatever it is. Tó dẹ̀ pé a jèrè. Kí là ń pè lérè? Mo ra mọ́tò ní 1 million, mo tà ní 3 million, mo ti jèrè 2 million. Capital gains tax ló ń pè. Tẹ́lẹ̀ 10% ni, ó sì di 30%. Tó lóòótọ́ láwọn àyè ibì kan tax ń lọ sókè. Ẹ bọ̀ kí mo sọ nǹkan mẹ́ta ni a fẹ́ create level playing field. Láwọn àyè kan a fẹ́ increase taxes, láwọn àyè kan a fẹ́ reduce taxes. Number 3 points, wọ́n gbọ́dọ̀ kọ́ ní development levy nísìnyí. Before now, apart from the company income tax rate of 30%, companies typically pay an assortment of other small taxes. Education tax 3%, NITDA, NASENI, Police Trust Fund, bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. So government wò pé alákòókò ìtajà ìsọ náà nìyẹn o any small thing wọ́n ti create tax law. Kí ló dé tẹ́ owó tà ń pa àfimá tọ́jú police bẹ́ẹ̀? Why do we have to write new tax law to collect taxes for police? Ṣáwọn sínú budget wa ni wọ́n pè fún education tax. Owó tà ń pa why do you have to write another separate tax law for education? And after develop science and technology àtúkọ̀ another tax law. So we're on a dangerous path where for every time government is trying to improve a social space, I'm actually tax law. So if we had continued that path, I'm reading tax law almost every year. So government said, you know what, gbogbo àwọn NITDA, Police Trust Fund, NASENI, kankan, ẹ jẹ́ ká harmonize ẹ̀, gbogbo ọ̀dẹ̀ gbọ́dọ̀ ju 4% lọ. Àwọn kan sọ ju 4% lọ. Wọ́n ti ní everybody ń sìn a máa sọ 4%. In addition to the CIT rate of 30%. So again, me if I go into details, but ṣẹ̀rí harmonization at 4% yìí, àwọn kan máa ní pé tax wọn lọ sókè torí àwọn kan san below 4%. Àwọn kan máa ní pé tax wọn lọ sílẹ̀ because àwọn kan san above 4% tẹ́lẹ̀. Right? Effective tax rate. There's a concept called minimum tax in our tax law. Òfin burú díẹ̀. The law is saying that regardless of your profit position, àfẹ́mọ̀ èrè tó pa, o gbọ́dọ̀ ṣaláì má san tax. What that means is that even if you are making loss as a company, you must still pay tax. Ẹ̀kún fún yẹn burú díẹ̀, minimum tax ni. So tábà ti rí account yín tàbí pé profit yín ìtẹ́kìmí ní profit loss lẹ́ní negative. Kí ló fi yẹn sọ òfin yẹn ní dá alọ́mú turnover yín? Ẹ̀jọ̀ ṣé turnover wá jẹ́ èrè? Tí wọ́n ta bottle water 100 naira, ṣé èrè mi ní 100 naira ni? Definitely kì í sọ tax lórí. You should ideally collect tax on my profits. Tẹ́ ẹ̀ bá bá profit náà tax bí ẹgbójú ń bẹ̀. But the law that we have currently to my expire on the 31st December, sọ pé tá bá bá profit bẹ̀, tá bá rí pé loss ni, a lọ sí turnover yẹn, ẹ̀ ṣáà lè má ní turnover, ẹ̀ ṣáà tajà, àgbà tax lórí turnover yẹn. So you could have done a business and made losses. Òfin tá à ń lò lọ́wọ́ sọ pé ẹ̀ ṣì san tax. So ìyẹn ti kúrò báyìí. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́, is that not the positive for us? Now we are back to profit. Minimum tax ṣì wà ó. Minimum tax ní pé ó kéré tán ẹ̀sọ́ yẹn báyìí. But the calculation of minimum tax is now going to be based on profit, not turnover. So it's a big win. Ní ọ̀sẹ̀ tó kọjá, lára àwọn companies tí mò ń manage, mò ń review tax filing wọn. Company yẹn make loss. Tó bá yẹ pọ̀ fi ta fẹ́ mú ìní àwa ní company ní sọ tax. But company tí mò ń sọ yìí, ó máa san 2 billion naira in taxes because they were calculating the minimum tax on turnover. Because only turnover, ó ṣe business, only turnover. Ẹni yìí sì ó máa san 2 billion naira in taxes. Tó dẹ̀ pé tó bá yẹ pé new law ní 0 naira kò ní san. Right, so lára àwọn reforms ní àárín nìyẹn. So let us avoid tabatin sọ̀rọ̀ tax. I believe we're now enlightened. It is not a single story. Èèyàn kan Chimamanda ó ní let us avoid the danger of a single story. Pé báyìí nìkan ṣe rí. Sometimes there are colours. Tax law táwọn sọ̀rọ̀ sí ó ní colour ni. Ó ní bí ó ti lọ sókè, ó ní bí ó ti lọ sílẹ̀. Don't just contribute to the conversation and saying, in fact, wọ́n fẹ́ gbẹ̀mí wa lórí tax. It is not a single story. It's a story of different versions. Some people will pay more, some people will pay less. So, ìyẹn jẹ́ bó ṣe jẹ́. And there are other issues, but eléyìí tí mo fẹ́ tó highlight òun ni tó dẹ̀ pé I think it's important for companies as well. Businesses generally, àti ní ìtàn ń pè ní e-invoicing. The more final description for e-invoicing nínú òfin is VAT fiscalization. Ṣé àmọ́ pé bá ṣe ń tajà ń sìn yìí, a lè má issue invoice. Àbí gbogbo business kan ló ń issue invoice. Àwa tá à ń ṣe school ṣe máa ń fún àwọn parents ní invoice. Tọ́mátì wọn la máa fún wọn receipt. So òfin ti wọ́n sì tó sọ pé gbogbo ẹni tó bá ń ṣe business a máa issue invoice in an electronic format. Wọ́n lọ pè ní e-invoicing. As of today, implementation is in phases. It is only affecting large companies. Companies tó bá tóbi. Kí ni definition of large companies? 50 billion turnover and above. Because Ocean might carry everybody. Very clearly, one, they implement e-invoicing for everybody. So once I pay, and they have get a more large company because even or the law is saying that as a large company, if you are doing business, everybody might issue invoice. The other issue invoice, it must be in an electronic format. Kí ni government fẹ́ ṣe pẹ̀lú invoicing? It's simple. Wọ́n fẹ́ máa capture transactions bá ṣe máa ń sọ in IT space, online real time. And it's not popular to Nigeria. Ẹjọ́ ṣe kan burú bẹ́ẹ̀ kí government sọ pé ẹ ṣe ń tajà fẹ́ máa rí. Kò burú. Tábà ní nǹkan fi pamọ́ o. Brother, what they are doing, you know. So let me say again, the Nigerian tax system operates on a principle called self-assessment. It's almost self-assessment, both for companies and individuals. Bá mi ká lọ. Òun ni pé tó bá ń ṣe business, sọ fún wa iye tó pa. Tell us what your revenue is. Tell us what your profit is. So tax lórí. Ẹni? Ọ̀tọ̀ nìyẹn o. Self-assessment ni pé ìwọ fún àná ẹjọ́ sọ pé turnover mi rèé, expenses mi rèé, profit mi rèé, tax mi rèé, san. But of course, a máa padà wá verify àgbà yín gbọ́ débẹ̀ o. But àtẹ̀kọ́kọ́ fún yín láǹfààní pé kẹ́ san bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe rí. Based on your record, based on your transaction, tell us what your profit is, pay the tax on it. As individuals now, èní kí ló ti pa lọ́dún, calculate the expenses san tax lé lórí. I think it's a good tax system. Government wa ní ṣùgbọ́n ó máa padà wá o. Ó lè jẹ́ lọ́dún tó ń bọ̀, it can be 3 years after. Màá wá confirm pé lóòótọ́ income tó sọ pé o make òótọ́ ni, profit yẹ òótọ́ ni. Tí mi bá bá nǹkan kan mi bẹ̀ mú, Balola yàtọ̀ àlàáfíà dé. Ìyẹn ló ń pè ní self-assessment. So, VAT fiscalization sọ pé tẹ́ bá ti ń tajà ẹ máa issue electronic invoice afẹ́ máa rí. Now, we have a problem with the tax system, which is why we needed to reform. Kí ni problem náà? Tí gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì bá pa 100 naira lẹ́nu yìí, ǹjẹ́ mọ̀ pé about àwọn 20% lọ́n wá san 80 naira ní 100 naira yìí? It's called the 80-20 principle. Tọ́lá tí gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì bá pa 100 naira lẹ́nu yìí taxes ẹ̀jẹ̀ máa jẹ́rìí tí mo sọ yìí torí màá bí àwọn táwọn ṣe business bẹ́ẹ̀ for tax. Tí gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì bá pa 100 naira lẹ́nu, ǹjẹ́ mọ̀ pé 20% of taxable person méjì mọ̀ pé ẹni tó jẹ́ kó san tax 20% nìkan ló ń san 80 naira ní 100 naira. The remaining 80% àwọn ló ń san 20 naira. So ìgbà tí gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì wá rí kí ló máa ṣe wá rí àwọn 20% tó ń san 80 yẹn, àwọn ẹni gọ́ọ̀mẹ̀ntì máa ṣe kí ni àwọn máa lè ṣọmọ́. Because if I have to go after 100 people to collect 100 naira and 20 people, if I go after them, máa pa 80 naira. Ṣé àmọ̀ pé ṣé mi ti wà simplified? I rather leave the remaining 80 people to help if I go after them 20 naira from the mariga law and focus on the 20% on mass 180 naira. Only Pareto principle on pay. It's an unfair system. Rose pé àwọn tó ń san tax, tẹ́ bá níbi táwọn tó ń san tax. Wọ́n máa kanra ni. Àwa tá à ń san tax, ẹ jẹ́ kí n include ara mi torí mo ń san tax. Àwa tá à ń san tax, níta máa sọ ni pé ṣé àwọn tó ń san tax ẹ fà wọ́n wọlé ẹ ti tẹ̀ ń gbà lọ because truly you probably do not need to increase tax rates. Tó bá yẹ pé ẹ̀ ń gbà kárí. So àwa tá à ń san kanra pé kọ́ mọ́ everybody wọlé. Ẹ jẹ́ kí n jẹ́wọ́. Àwa là ń complain pé you can't keep, don't overtax our town. So the matter of complaints is big complaints. Companies like MTN, PZ, ojoojúmọ́ ni FRS ẹni lọ síbẹ̀. Meanwhile, ara àwọn company náà this same Nigeria tẹ́ ń pẹ́ wọn audit wọn rí wọn ìyẹ̀wò wọn rò rí. Kí ló dé? Ìbọn náà ti mọ̀ pé wọn lè nǹkan díẹ̀ lè máa bá ń bẹ̀. Ṣé ìyẹn ló ń pè ní tax? Tax is saying let everybody pay their what? Fair share. It's not about how pọ̀ bí àbò ọmọ kéré bí kí everybody san ìyẹn ló wà equitable. Don't say that it's easy for me to go after MTN and Airtel and Zenith Bank, First Bank. I will leave our school. So everyone knows something more. And it's like that because the capacity. Because we can call manual. If you have a system that is driven by technology, system that is driven by what? Technology. You don't have to manually go after people to pay taxes. Just put your controls in place. tó dáa pé arò yẹn fẹ́ pọ̀ díẹ̀. But the question is, should we allow 20% to continue to pay, or we want everybody to pay? A fair system is where everybody is paying their fair share. On the government share reforms, but look, we need to find a way to bring everybody into the tax net, because Nigeria, informal sector wa ó fẹ́ pọ̀ ju formal sector wa lọ. Nígbà tí ọ̀rọ̀ tax ti jẹyọ, I have been shocked that some people wò mọ̀ pé táwọn bá ń ṣe business ẹ̀ kàn sọ tax. A máa rẹ̀ pé tax ọ̀rọ̀ àwọn tó ń sọ tax tó ń lọ sọ́fíìsì ní ó kàn. Ara problem ta ní nìyẹn o. Some people are surprised to hear that even though tó bá tẹ̀ ní iṣẹ́ báńkì, iṣẹ́ company, ṣọ́ọ̀bù ló tó ṣe, as long as tó kú ẹ bá ti wọ ní ṣọ́ọ̀bù ìjọba, you must pay taxes. As it's already sub companies say, I need 50 million and above over some tax. So it does not matter that you have a small business. At what go taxes, one shot of a company level, àbí mo dá business name level, ventures level. Taxes can be collected in your hand as an individual. So you can decide to say, look, mi ò dá lè ṣẹlẹ̀ náà, mi ò lọ sí CAC lọ ṣe registration. Mo kàn sí ṣọ́ọ̀bù tí mo ti ń ta zobo mi ni. Ọ̀rọ̀ tax ń ṣọ̀rọ̀ tí ìdéhùn gbà lọ́wọ́ company nìkan. Tax can be assessed in the hands of the company, of a business or individual. So, the CAC registration, no problem. We'll assess you in the name of Mulika Adedeji. So, you have decided not to register Mulika Ventures. No problem. We will not tax Mulika Ventures because it does not exist. Because you have not set up a business name. But you have done business in the name of Mulika Adedeji. We will tax Mulika Adedeji. So have been surprised that people are surprised that Mulika Adedeji, who is doing business, selling ABC, doing German, they are surprised that they should pay taxes. I'm sorry, ìjọba mò ń sọ̀rọ̀ fún bọ́sẹ̀ àṣemà wà náà lò mo ṣe tí kọ́kọ́ fi síwájú ìhà tá gbọ́dọ̀ kọ sí tax as Muslims. How can you be in society and you say you don't want to contribute? The conversation pé owó wa kí ló fẹ́ ṣe is a different one. Àwọn náà máa rojọ́ tí wọ́n. But táwa náà bá san ti wá àjọ máa rojọ́ ni. And tó bá tó fi ṣe tó yẹ kó fi ṣe àròjọ àwa tá wà nínú ìlú náà tá àsàn ti wá àwọn náà àròjọ. So it's a different conversation around what they're using your tax money for. Ẹ sọ tí ń kẹ gbójú. All right, so bí ẹ ṣe jẹ́ nìyẹn. So of course e-invoicing ẹ má yẹ kí ẹ tí bọ́dà wa. Àbára ẹ tó ń ṣe business tó ń pa 50 billion and above ní báyìí. Báàbá rí e-invoice tí ń ṣe problem wa. But ẹ má jẹ́ pé yà wá lẹ́nu. 2 years down the line, a year from now, tá bá sọ pé àwa náà tá bá tajà, tá bá dé Shoprite lẹ́nu. Tá bá ṣe ń fún yín ní invoice, tá bá ṣàkíyèsí, ẹ máa rí FIRS logo lórí ẹ̀. FIRS ń rí tó ń pa bó ṣe ń tajà. Other countries that implement it, Ghana bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n ti ṣe. Báwọn èèyàn ṣe ń tajà, ìjọba ń rí. Táàbà ní ta fẹ́ ń pamọ́, kò jẹ́ kí èèyàn tún bí wọn nù. That should not be a basis to oppose the reform if I'm not hiding anything. But I agree, tax is very painful to pay. And that is why, as consultants, in terms of engineering, you go, okay, báwo la ṣe lè bá yín minimize tax legally? Ìyẹn ló ń pè ní tax avoidance. Tax is very painful to pay. Olùdẹ́ pé iṣẹ́ àwọn kan nìyẹn pé kán jókòó, kán bá yín wo bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe lè san as minimal as possible while being done legally. Iṣẹ́ tax consultant nìyẹn, wọ́n mú summarize. Of course, the penalties for failure to do what you need to do, it has not been increased and all of that. Ejo, next slide. Okay, so eléyìí tí mo fi pàmò ní interest nínú ẹ̀ òun ni bó ṣe affect èmi àti yín as individuals àti fi àwọn companies lẹ́ báyìí sí mi. Ṣé àpá àmì ò nìkan ni wọ́n ní interest nípa company. So àwa tó kù individuals òfin tá ń pariwo yìí sí yìí báwo ló ṣe affect wa kí ló ń change. It would surprise us to know that some of the things that we think are new introductions, they are not new, for money, which is why for us as tax practitioners, we're happy this is coming up. Because it is because tax law is not entrenched as part of our lifestyle. Ṣé ìjà àwọn tó ń pè ní tax season tẹ̀lé pé nísìnyí wọ́n máa tẹ́pá wà ní festive season àbí bá ṣe ní festive season a ní tó ń pè ní tax season. I am sure pé 90% àwọn táwọn abẹ́ àgbọ̀rẹ́ kò dẹ̀ sí nǹkan méjì tó fà á because a pẹ̀lú àwọn 80% tí ò mọ for tax àbí tó ń san tó yẹ kó san. Tax season is that period when everybody a máa jókòó a máa gbé bírò àti pépà a máa sọ pé as individuals àti democratic companies I'm talking about individuals, I'm talking about business owners tí ò kì í ṣe company. Ẹ mọ̀ pé mo sọ tẹ́lẹ̀, you can be a business owner that register company, you can be a business owner that register business rárá, you can also be a business owner tó ń pẹ́ gbàtẹ́fẹ́ register ẹ sọ fún láàyè pé ẹ fẹ́ company ẹ kàn jẹ́ kọ́ bá mi ṣe 2G ventures. So ṣàárẹ̀ àwọn category yẹn wọn là ń discuss báyìí sí gbogbo wa pátápátá either individual or business owners tí ò kì í ṣe company we are actually supposed to file a tax return. ṣàbí period a máa ń file tax return àwọn ló ń pè ní tax season. ẹni tó bá ti gbé ìlú òyìnbó rí ọmọ tó ń pè ní tax season it's usually between the first 90 days of the new year. oníkálùkù ọmọ sáré kiri ni you dare not file a tax return. ọ̀tọ̀ ni ìjìyà ọ̀tọ̀ ni penalty for not filing tax return ọ̀tọ̀ ni penalty for paying not enough taxes, shortfall in taxes, inadequate taxes, penalty ọ̀tọ̀ ni. So Nigeria is trying to get us into an environment where we are now more conscious of our tax obligation. Tẹ̀bárí àwọn celebrities labroad. Ọdún kan lè lọ kí a má rí pé tax fraud wọ́n fẹ́ mú ìyọ̀kan lọ court fún tax fraud. Tẹ̀bá fọ́ọ̀lù football news ó ti ṣẹlẹ̀ sí Messi rí ó ti ṣẹlẹ̀ sí Ronaldo rí ó ṣẹlẹ̀ sí Trump rí former Bayern Munich president ó ti lọ sẹ́wọ̀n. But ọ̀rọ̀ tax mi báyìí àkọ́bí ara sí torí àwọn tó yẹ kó kọbi ara sí náà epo yẹn ni wọ́n kọjú mọ́ èsì tí owó epo wọ́n ti tà tán láì ṣàwá tí wọ́n padà sórí tax wọ́n fẹ́ fagídí sáré fi gbà but wọ́n ti fẹ́ gbà náà a lè sọ pé wọ́n lè gbà o we must pay our fair share we must pay our fair share. Taxes in Nigeria ṣé ìgbà tẹ̀ tí ẹ mọ́ tó jẹ́ taxes in ṣe máa mọ gbà tó yẹ kó jẹ́. So in Nigeria taxes were much as individuals. As individuals I am saying to you mo mọ̀ pé breaking news ni and this is not new. So ó lè jẹ́ pé tá a máa ń sọ̀rọ̀ tax reform sometimes I don't know what to discuss and how to classify the conversation because àwọn kan mìíràn máa sọ kò new but because it is now a very topical issue. Ó ṣe dàbí pé in time gbọ́ for the first time ṣe bó ṣe máa ní ìrònú ni regardless of the fact pé ó ti wà nínú tax laws wa for the past 5, 10 years, 20 years. Ká máa file tax returns, ká máa san taxes as business owner. Ẹlòmíì owó tó fi ń jẹun Ọlọ́run ti bless ẹ bá ti ṣiṣẹ́ mọ́ ọkọ̀ mẹ́kọ̀ọ́ ti ṣiṣẹ́ ní big company for the past 10, 15 years wọ́n ti cash out wọ́n ti lówó. Airbnb ọ̀rọ̀ ti kọ́lé ńkọ̀ fún rent ní rent wọ́n fi ń jẹun. Rental income ẹlòmíì mọ̀ pé bóun ṣe ń gba owó rent yẹ kóun san tax lórí lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀ and it is not new so Tinubu kọ́ o Tinubu, so when you hear wọ́n ní ká máa san tax pé Tinubu, it is not Tinubu, òfin yẹn ti wà wọ́n implement ẹ̀ ní. Ẹlòmíì inú ilé ẹ̀ ló ti ń ṣe business Ọlọ́run dẹ̀ ti kẹ́. Ẹlòmíì ń pa 100 million inú pálọ̀ ẹ̀ ní 50 million 80 million 70 million ní year. Àwọn event decoration ó ní iye tó ń pa lọ́dún. Ọ̀sán tax rèé o. Tinubu tẹ̀ mọ̀ pé fún ọ̀sán tax. Tinubu kọ́kọ́ lọ́dún kan san tax òfin yẹn ti wà for the past 20 years. Kí ló fi náà? Everybody must pay their fair share as long as income yín tó bá ti wọlé sọ́ọ̀bù ìjọba. So bá ṣe sọ̀rọ̀ company náà as individuals as business owner, if you make in turn pay the minimum wage, you have no business with tax. Kí ni minimum wage ìlú Nàìjíríà ń sìn? 7,000 naira per month. In a year, 840,000 naira. Àwọn tí a gbà sílé as drivers and domestic staff, àwọn náà pariwo tax, wọ́n fẹ́ tax wa pa, wọ́n dẹ̀ mọ̀ pé kò sí kan tó kàn wọ́n pẹ̀lú tax. Ṣé minimum wage 70,000 tẹ́ pé most state governments, I mean apart from Lagos state and maybe 3-4 states, àwọn nìkan ló lè san new minimum wage. The rest of our subnationals wọn ò rí san. Eléyìí tó túmọ̀ sí pé most of their workers are still below 70,000 naira. Eléyìí tó túmọ̀ sí kí ni they have no business with tax. Àwọn yẹn sìn àwọn náà máa join the conversation tí ni mo fẹ́ tax wá pa o. You are earning minimum wage and you are complaining about taxes. You have no business with taxes at all. So ẹ jọ̀ọ́, every year, not later than March, Tabafa show do. We're supposed to sit down, just like Zakat. Zakat is saying, if you fail to do it, ani oku watolong. Ọ̀rọ̀ tax náà bó ṣe rí náà nìyẹn. As of today, ó tó ọ̀rọ̀ bẹ̀ ni pé government ò ní capacity to go after every one of us. So ọ̀rọ̀ tó wà lẹ̀ ó di ọ̀rọ̀ àmọ́ náà. Tabafa show do. We're supposed to sit down and say income, expenses, profits, and that includes our salary employment. Now, the mistake is to think that our in corporate employment, what is your tax mean? What is file tax returns mean? Because every company got to file tax returns for their employees every January. Tàbá àti bàtà ń ṣiṣẹ́ wọ́n yọ owó wa táwọn máa rẹ́mi tax is the problem. So please always validate, always check that your company is remitting your taxes to your state of residence. So ẹni tó bá wà ní Ogun State tó ń gbé Ogun State tó ṣiṣẹ́ lẹ́kọ̀ọ́, Ogun State ní taxes ẹ̀ mẹ́lọ. So we're supposed to file our tax returns. I think the big news is that there's a new tax table, and tax table in Tabawo, which is so I have tested it. Most of us will pay lower taxes, 25 million and below. Almost lower taxes. Out and above is when you earn above 25 million naira. So that's one key change. Number two is that.
When you earn more than 25, you have to.
No, everybody must on tax. So if you are above the minimum threshold, if you earn minimum wage and below, you don't pay taxes. Above minimum wage, everybody must on. But I'm saying, so for clarity, what I'm saying here is that I want to marry increase in their taxes compared to those currently are those who are earning above 25 million naira. So I'm sorry I didn't say that very clearly. If you earn below 25 million naira, what I'm saying is that you will see a reduction in your taxes starting from January 31st. If you earn below 25 million naira, you see a reduction in your taxes. I am not saying that if you earn below 25 million naira, you will not pay taxes. I want to raise some taxes. Those who are earning minimum wage, which is 840,000 naira per annum. So, another principle to jail in this new tax reform is As a resident in Nigeria, you are taxable on your worldwide income. It used to be there, but not very clear. It's not very clear. So, mo ṣe wà Nigeria sí, Ọlọ́run ti kẹ́ ẹlòmíì. Ó nílé ní UK, ó ń gba rent bẹ́ẹ̀ o. You will pay tax in Nigeria. As a Nigerian resident, you are taxable on your worldwide income. I need to move very quickly. Rent relief yẹn, jẹ́ kí n skip yẹn. Virtual assets, tẹ́bárì ìgbà tí crypto kọ́kọ́ dé, ẹ̀rí pé Nigerian government àwọn kan sọ fún àwọn banks wọn don't get involved in digital currencies. Fọwọ́ sí. Mi ò dẹ̀ blame wọn, nǹkan tí you understand. How can you just permit it into your system? So they took their time to study it and they realized, okay, look, the present and the future is that we must allow for digital currency. So listen, government said you can trade in your crypto, Bitcoin, and all of that. But if you make a gain, I'm a tax here. So digital assets are now taxable. If you dispose them, if you make a gain and all of that. Yes, I should say this for the benefit of our corporate employment. Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wa mọ̀ pé in tí ó jẹ́ ká máa san tax lórí, and I want to state this because in case your employers tọ́mọ̀ reform, tọ́mọ̀ adjust tax calculation, tẹ̀lé pé tax ń lọ sókè, ẹ máa sọ pé àpótí wọ́n ní tax wa máa lọ lẹ́nu. Are you aware that as an employee, you are taxable not just on your basic housing transport, but the entirety of what comes to you as a result of the employment? Gross. I don't pay gross emolument. Sọ pé gross cash emolument because tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní pé gbogbo ẹ̀ náà kan ló máa sọ fún in cash. Wọ́n sọ pé tó bá payroll lọ, ṣe mọ̀ pé níta máa ṣe àwọn owó kan wà tó máa gbà monthly, àwọn yẹn ló gba payroll lọ. Àwọn kan wà one off. Ayé ìgbà yẹn tá bá ń advise àwọn company, àní kan fún àwọn kan sí basic housing transport, àní kan ṣe àwọn kan ní one off. Àwa sọ pé èlé tí wọ́n ń gbà monthly yẹn ní tax mú irọ́ ni, ẹ̀tàn ni. Gbogbo tí ó bá ń wá sọ́dọ̀ yín as a result of employment, so that jet benefits is taxable, and it doesn't have to be cash. So, kí làwọn benefit à ń sọ? Unofficial car is taxable. So in case tá bá rí iléeṣẹ́ tó ń pẹ́ wọn máa tax ní lọ́rọ̀ official car yín tó fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ next year, tọ́rọ wọn náà fẹ́ wà compliant. Tax yẹn á lọ sí kẹwàá pé but wọ́n máa wálẹ̀ ní ó ní tí wọ́n máa tax wọ́n fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí tax sí. Accommodation tó bá fún yín ọ̀gá lẹ́lòmíì á fún wọn lé is taxable. But òfin ni pé kí ni taxable value owó later ìsan so tó máa gbalẹ̀ 10 million naira fún yín, that 10 million naira is an income in your hands because tábà gbalẹ̀ ẹ̀ ṣàfowó yẹn lọ gbalẹ̀ náà, so it's a taxable benefit. But in tó fi something ni pé ṣẹ́rí tó bá gbalẹ̀ fún yín benefit yẹn will cap it as 20% of your gross income. So for instance tábà lọ gbalẹ̀ 30 million fún yín, tẹ́lẹ̀ pé 20% of your gross income is 6 million. 6 million ni a máa sọ pé jẹ́ taxable benefit fún yín lórí ilé yín. But of course laptop kan ní ká máa fi ṣiṣẹ́ ìyẹn ṣe taxable benefit o. It's a work tool. Òfin ní tá máa fún wa lóúnjẹ nínú canteen is not taxable o. Get wọ́n gba life assurance fún wa, it is not taxable in our hands. Health insurance, it is not taxable in our hands. There are staff costs, company expenses. So, monetary sorry, because we like to see companies being more compliant and trying to tax our bottom of tax delay. Even in leave allowance, 13th month, productivity, Christmas bonus, they are all taxable. Nígbà tí mo sọ lọ́fíìsì HR lánàá, yọmọ kó wà láti wà HR gan mu. Because system táwọn rán ni pé kẹrẹ́ ìta máa ń sọ monthly nìkan ní tax mú. Gbogbo tẹ bá ń pa látara pé ẹ ṣiṣẹ́ is taxable. So yes, like I said earlier, some things are not changing. Kò mọ̀ ní o, but it is sọ̀rọ̀ pa ẹ̀. As individual, ká máa file tax return. Mi ò dá company lẹ̀, mi ò dá business name lẹ̀, san tax o. Ẹni tó ń wa Uber tó wà bá ti wọ ní sọ́ọ̀bù ìjọba ó máa san tax o òfin ọ̀ exempt ẹ o àwọn tó fi exempt minimum wage and below. So question tẹ́ pé tí máa ń ṣe kínní ìṣe máa san tax, the question you should ask yourself is ṣé income mi in a year is it above the minimum wage? If it is above, you are taxable.
Business venture.
Business venture, kínní kan enterprises, you are all taxable. Tí owó tẹ̀ ń pa tó bá ti kọjá minimum wage. So ẹ má jẹ́ ká béèrè mọ̀ pé tí máa ń ṣe lè tí máa ń ṣe yẹn tí máa ń ṣe yẹn tí wọ́n máa béèrè ní pé ìlú lè ń pa ní ọdún tó bá ti kọjá 840,000 báwo ṣe get 840,000 minimum wage and some tax. So yes, we should file our tax returns. Every individual, I'm a content creator. Gbogbo àti ń fẹ́ máa di content creator torí owó tó ń pa lórí YouTube, TikTok, bọ́lá ọ̀rẹ́ kan lórí ó kàn post lórí Twitter ni about 500,000 naira monthly because only following only followers wọ́n máa engage yẹ 500,000 naira pé a kàn ń ṣeré a kàn ń post ló jẹ́ pé nísìnyí ìfìsínà mi nìyí wọ́n ti dálẹ̀ because people want to have engagement so everybody ṣáà ń ju nǹkan sórí internet because it's monetized. Mo wo fídíò ní kọ́mpútà kan kí n tó dé nígbà ìsẹ́yìn tó ń sọ mo kò tí àwọn pé ṣé ẹni lọ rẹ́pì ní pub láti fi kó bá Islam ni àbí ní kọ́mpútà ló ń sọ eléyìí pẹ̀tẹ́ báwo lọ náà àwọn èèyàn wá engagement clever ṣe wá engagement because wọ́n ti monetize impressions wọ́n ti monetize the engagement and people are making money from it. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ our content creator tí YouTube ń fún wa lówó Google ń fún wa lówó TikTok ń fún wa lówó Instagram ń fún wa lówó wà paying tax tó bá ti wọ minimum wage. Of course, penalties for not filing your tax return, 100,000 naira in the first month, 50,000 naira for every month of default. Bí mo ṣe sọ, even as employee, the company file tax returns there, you should still down, still file the tax returns. Kí ni reason? Because bó ṣe ń ṣe 95, irú brother wood, bó ṣe ń gba salary, wọ́n tún níbi tó ti tún pawọ́. Gbogbo ẹ̀ ló wà taxable. Gbogbo ẹ̀ ló wà taxable. So, which is why even when you work in an organization, your company has filed the tax return. Taba fẹ́ ṣe òdodo, we should still sit down, not later than 31st of March, do a summation of all our income. So yes, salary, máa gbé wọlé. Rental income, máa gbé wọlé. Owó tí Twitter ń sọ fún mi nítorí mò ń tweet, máa gbé wọlé. A máa ń teach àwọn ọmọ secondary school, wọ́n tún ń sanwó fún wa by the side. A tún wà Uber, àmọ́ kéèkì ṣe, àmọ́ bake, àmọ́ ránṣọ. Gbogbo ẹ̀ la máa gbé wọlé o. Ta máa san tax lórí. So like I said, BIKs they are taxable. Now, eléyìí tí mo fẹ́ emphasize bẹ̀rẹ̀ ó ti dá wà lálẹ́. The requirement so again, àwọn kan wà tó ti wà tẹ́lẹ̀ àpọ̀ mọ́ ni, but because eléyìí ti bá politics dé. Ṣé àmọ́ tí ẹ tó wọ́n ní wọ́n pẹ̀lú tax reform yìí ni pé wọ́n lọ touch bí wọ́n ṣe máa pín VAT. Ṣé àmọ́ pé VAT wa ó lè tàn pín based on population, ó lè tàn pín based on equality, ó lè tàn pín based on derivation. Equality ni pé everybody á gba the same thing, I set aside the percentage kan, everybody all the states the same thing. Àwọn kan population so Kano wọ́n pọ̀ ju Ọ̀yọ́ lọ, wọ́n gba mọ́. So wọ́n fẹ́ change distribution system yẹn to favour derivation pé ẹ ṣe máa gba mọ́ torí ẹ pọ̀. Ibi tí wọ́n ti ń ṣe business tó ń mú VAT wá Èkó ní. Ibi tí wọ́n ti ń ṣe business tó ń mú VAT wá Port Harcourt ní. So ẹ ṣe máa nítorí ẹ̀wọ̀ 30 million Kano you should collect more. So wọ́n fẹ́ change system yẹn bí gbogbo ṣe dàrú nìyẹn. And that is why there's a lot of attention because gbogbo governors yarí nǹkan kan. Now, so again, that's by the way. There's a current regulation of and that regulation is addressed to those in banking. Regulation is saying that ẹ̀yin bankers ẹ jọ̀ọ́ gbogbo àwọn account tí àwọn èèyàn ní lọ́dọ̀ yìí tó ń pé wọ́n fi ń ṣe business. make it compulsory that they provide you with the tax identification numbers. So tabara àwọn tẹ́ pé a ṣí business tàbí ṣí bank account in the past 1 year. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ṣé wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ tí lọ́wọ́ yín àbí wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀? Wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀, so ẹni pé kò ń ṣòfò tuntun àwa làpọ̀. It is not new. So wọ́n ní ká sọ̀rọ̀ pa tax reform bákan pé èwo la fẹ́ sọ ọ́n bẹ̀ tó wáyé sẹ́yìn. Ṣé èyí tó jẹ́ tuntun gangan ni àbẹ̀lẹ̀ tẹ́ ìpàṣẹ ń gbọ́ for the first time? Wọ́n ṣe tuntun. Èyí tó òfin tuntun yẹn kàn wá ṣe ni pé ó wá expand the requirements from bankers to stockbroking firms and other financial institutions because after marrying financial footprint yìí ṣe tọ́mọ́ FCC máa ń ṣe ṣe àwọn tó wà investigation wọ́n máa sọ pé follow the money. Gbogbo tẹ̀ ń ṣe pẹ̀lú owó bó ṣe ń wọlé bó ṣe ń jáde a fẹ́ máa rí. I ask again, tá a bá ní ta fẹ́ ń pamọ́ ṣó jẹ́ kó bí wọ́n nù. Tá a bá ṣe tún àti san tax tó yẹ ká san ẹ máa rí pé kò yẹ kó bí wọ́n nù. Tá a bá ti ń bínú ó dàbí pé a fẹ́ fi nǹkan pamọ́ ni. So it's not a new requirement. So tá a bá lọ báńkì lè ní today ṣe àmọ́ pé òfin transfer yìí lẹ́sẹ̀ ló ṣì máa bẹ̀rẹ̀. Today, if you open a business account, bank might be rating. Why are they asking for team? Kò sí nǹkan méjì. Wọ́n fẹ́ link a transaction yìí to your tax record. And there's nothing wrong with it. Why will my bank transaction be showing volume worth 500 million? Ìgbà tí ó dẹ̀ máa di pé mo fẹ́ tax return, mo file 20 million. Now, lóòótọ́ gbogbo owó tó bá wọnú bank kan ní turnover. But what the government is saying is that a fẹ́ fi information tó ń wọlé tó ń jáde a fẹ́ fi access tax record yìí ní tó ń sọ nìyẹn wọ́n sọ pé tax tẹ́ máa san is based on ìtarí tó wọlé tó jáde. They are just saying that they want to use it as a source of financial intelligence so that when we now see your tax record, if we see a wide disparity we will say no, come and explain. So let me quickly say, and this is very important because I don't know how much time I have left. Only 5 minutes, about 20 minutes ago. So I have 15 minutes deficit. The way the Nigerian tax system works, nobody can debit your bank account automatically. It is not possible. It is illegal. And I can say that very confidently because I practice tax. Before anybody can deduct tax from your money, you must have what is called an assessment. Ideally, we must file our own assessment. The file assessment, government can reject it and say, they must give you their own assessment. A dispute, a reconciliation. Nobody can debit your bank account automatically because if they do that, they would not have given you an assessment. Abroad. Tabadado custom. I'm a follow assessment. No tax authority can debit your bank accounts directly. It is not possible.
Okay,
Possible misconception long pé. So jẹ́ ká kàn wá balẹ̀ pé owó wọnú account mi nǹkan kò possible. So what is taxable? So mo fẹ́ ká pay attention sí what is taxable so that we keep getting a lot of questions. Tí n bá gba owó ilé ṣé tax ni? I am saying to you, ẹ jẹ́ ká wojú bọ́ọ̀dù yìí. Tí o bá ti sí lójú bọ́ọ̀dù yìí, kò taxable. Somebody will tell me if I send money to my son, is it taxable? If I send money to my wife, is it taxable? It is not, which is why I'm saying misconception. Erotic budget. In what taxable kí ni o? Number one, salaries, wages, fees, allowances, compensation in the course of the employment. Fully taxable. And our employers are taking care of that. The next one is what? Profit or gain from a business. Talk about sending owó sí ìyàwó ẹ̀. Báwo ni ẹ ṣe jẹ́ business? It is not. It's not taxable. There has to be a taxable event. A trade has taken place. So, which is why the government cannot do an automatic debit because moreover, goes on amount to and they know very clearly that in town like the whole lorry is it over trade. bàbá fọmọ ẹ̀ lọ́dún bọ́ọ̀lù yẹn ṣe jẹ́ taxable event, so nobody can debit you. The worst that can happen, and I have to admit this, ó ti ṣẹlẹ̀ rí, ó dẹ̀ ṣì máa ṣẹlẹ̀, ni pé tọ́ máa rí pé interfile ó yàtọ̀ sí tọ́ expect kẹ́ file tọ́ fún yín láti expect tẹ́fà lọ tẹ́fà bọ̀, ó máa ń dé stage kan tó ń pé wọ́n lè place lien on your account. So, and that's the worst. The worst is that, okay, look, ẹni yìí ò san tax, àbẹ̀ ó san 10 naira, àpapọ̀ ẹ̀kọ́ san 15 naira, àdàtijọ́ ń fà látijọ́ ń fà bọ̀. The worst is that they will place a lien on the value. So, the money 1 million account me, I will still have access to 1 million minus the 15 naira that is in dispute. Show you. So the worst that can happen, and here kedere, ẹ ti jọ fa lọ fa bọ̀, ẹ ti jọ disagree. So ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn wà tí níyànjú àwọn àgbà wà lókè kí n má lọ lose because ẹni yìí bó ṣe ń bá lọ́kùn ní san tax rẹ̀ mọ̀ pé owó yìí ò jẹ́ kó san on the value of the amount in dispute. Governments can decide to place a lien on it, but there's a lot of process before you can get there. So nobody can debit your account directly. Royalty fees, rent, interest, interest, rent, fully taxable. Prices, yes, it's more important. Ṣé àmọ́ pé yàtọ̀ wà lára price àti gift. A máa ń lò wọ́n interchangeably. Ta ló mọ̀ yàtọ̀ price and gift? Kí ló fi yàtọ̀ síra wọn? Tàbá pè fún price, a pè fún gift. Gift ẹ̀ ṣe kankan, mo kàn bùn yín ní. Price, mo ní kẹ́ ṣe kankan. Ẹ wá win. So, àwọn tó ń lọ Big Brother, mo mọ̀ pé kò tó lọ Big Brother bí i. Cowbell competition, kíní kan. All such programs, téèyàn ti ń jẹ ẹ̀bùn for participating in something. Their prizes, they are taxable. Ó yàtọ̀ sí gift o. So tí máa fún yín lówó lè ní mo dash yín kò sí yẹn ń ṣe you've not done anything. It's exempted from taxes. So I hope that answers most of the questions around that area. Next slide. So kí ni ká ṣe? Ẹ jẹ́ ká register for taxes. Àwa táwa in employment, employer máa ti register wa because some of our register wa lè máa file. So just go to your HR, ask for your tax numbers. Àwa táwa ń ṣe business. Tá bá fẹ́ ṣe òdodo, ẹ jẹ́ ká register for tax. Again, ẹ má yẹ ká bẹ̀rù because ẹ̀yin ilẹ̀ fún ara yín lè máa sọ pé turnover mi lélẹ́yìí, expenses mi lélẹ́yìí, profit mi lélẹ́yìí, and then you pay the tax on the profits. So if you do a business and you make an income, at the tax, if it is below the threshold, ẹ ní san tax. So ẹ jẹ́ ká register for taxes. Be mindful that income from all your economic activities, they are taxable. Seek expert opinion when in doubt. Pay more attention to your banking. So ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ti sọ pé a fẹ́ máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí fi narration sí báńkì wa. Brilliant, right? Because we want to be able to say yes, Lagos State government sọ pé òun rí 50 million lákàntì ní ètò jẹ́ lélẹ́yìn ó bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti orí narration but kò wá dúró lórí narration o torí agbọ̀ngàn èyí tó jẹ́ economic activity èrè tí mo tà ṣèbí mo lè sọ pé kó jọba mi pè ní gift tá a lè ṣe ni. So it is not enough to describe. That is just one thing out of the many things you should do. It is not enough to describe. Also keep records to support. So èèyàn tó fún mi lọ́wọ́ tó jẹ́ gifts, maybe a máa ní exchange, documentary exchange to confirm pé gift ni. But again, it is not enough to put description because àwọn tó ń tajà gan wọ́n lè máa change description. So òfin ò ní sọ pé tó dẹ̀ ti describe would support it into sọ pé ó jẹ́ ìyẹn support it. Off the account mi gba owó aṣọ ẹbí funeral àbí wedding èmi ni mo organize describe it and have evidence. It can be WhatsApp conversation. Description is not enough, but it's a way to start. So tax optimization, this is very important. So nísìnyí a ti wá gbà pé kò síbi tá à ń lọ tá a bá fẹ́ ṣe òdodo àmàsàn tax. Now mo ń tẹnu mọ́ tá a bá fẹ́ ṣe òdodo because ẹ mọ̀ why. The reality is that for the next foreseeable period, government will not come to people like you and I to come and harass us for taxes. So the 20% here, why should I allow 20%? The only way they can collect 100% from 100% is technology. They might deploy artificial intelligence that would analyze your bank statements, automatically generate, because if they have to do it manually, how many bank accounts will they review? You may not collect tax. But if you digitize the tax process, number one link it in more personal accounts. Number two, one is software to analyze the bank statements. One is software to generate report automatically. That same software must send in assessments. It is possible that everybody will be captured. But that does not happen now. And probably will not happen for the next 2, 3, 4 years. So while it's okay to be informed, the reality is that our attack is high net worth individuals. We will continue to escape taxes. And I'm not saying we should be happy about that. I'm just saying that's the reality. So I like to say, because talking about apprehensive, except you are a very high net worth. So ọ̀rọ̀ ká máa file returns lè nísìnyí ẹgbẹ̀rún tí wọ́n kọ sí pé kò file tax return àbí return tó file san owó tó yẹ kó san kò sínú wa. Bọ̀ ṣẹlẹ̀ pé àwọn kan tán pé ọdọọdún wọn lè ṣe ká má gba lẹ́tà yẹn. It's still the same principle of collecting 80% or 20%. So for instance, if you are a celebrity, irú àwọn whiskey tí ń sìn yìí, àwọn Burna Boy wọn ò gbọdọ̀ má gba lẹ́tà lọ́dọọdún. But lẹ́tà tó ń pa ẹ̀ ó yẹ kí màtí ní máa gbà. But tó máa kọ lẹ́tà sí mi sìn kí wọ́n fẹ́ rí. Òun lọ ṣe máa bọ́dà ara wọn. Recently, ọ̀dà pé Ìyábọ̀ Òjó wọn kọ lẹ́tà sí. So, Cherry Tax Office, Lagos State, our only the most advanced tax system. There's an office, marked out for high net worth individuals. Ọ̀tọ̀ tún wà fún ọ̀pọ̀ kan ní new growth areas. Ibẹ̀ làwọn actors, celebrities, musicians. Ibẹ̀ làwọn yẹn wà. The tax culture in this system is so bad that people are not paying taxes. Wọ́n tún máa float in wealth wọn. That is how bad the system is. Èmi tí mo mọ̀ pé mi ò san tax, mo dẹ̀ máa ra Rolls Royce, mo dẹ̀ máa post it. Àyàmá kò wá o. Lè try it abroad. Àwọn èèyàn fẹ́ wọ́n ṣeré. So èèyàn jẹ́ bó ṣe jẹ́. So what can you do to pay lower taxes as legally as possible? Àwa táwa ní even informal employment. Ṣé mọ̀ pé pension tí wọ́n jọ lówó wa, we can make voluntary contribution. So today, your employer will contribute 10%, our will contribute 8%. Are you aware that you can decide to do additional? VPC, voluntary pension contribution. If you do that, it reduces the amount of tax you pay. Because your pension group can determine the tax. So you can decide, but tábà ń sọ yẹn ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn pé ṣé in tí mo mú olólè ṣó ti tó mi ni tí mo ti máa ṣe voluntary pension contribution, but ẹ tọ́lọ̀ bá kẹ́ tó dẹ̀ fẹ́ reduce tax ẹ̀ ọ̀nà kan rèé o, increase your voluntary pension contribution. It applies to those in formal employment and informal. Ẹni tó ní business náà ẹ̀yin tẹ̀sí ní formal employment ìjà mọ̀ pé àwọn náà lè ṣe pension. There is a pension scheme for àwọn tó sì ní formal employment. So ìyẹn jẹ́ ìní. You can sign up for a life assurance policy. Ẹ tó bá take up life assurance policy, àwọn àfa àwọn aṣọ fún ọba yẹn wà lálọ́ not, but èyí tó fi sọ lè mi sọ. Life assurance policy that you take up in your own name. Ṣé àwọn pé company bọ́ ṣe wà, wọ́n máa ń ṣe life assurance fún wa, ìyẹn kọ́ là ń sọ, ìyẹn ni company expense. Eléyìí tá a bá take on our own life or the life of our spouse, it is deductible. That's what máa lọ lẹ. If you take up a mortgage, of course, we are Muslims. We know what you can do and what you cannot do. But by law, ẹni tó bá lọ yáwó ní bank tó fi ralé tó ń gbé, interest the bank máa ń charge ẹ̀. Tó bá sọ fún employer pé interest ní mò ń san lórí ilé tí mo rà lélẹ́yìí wọ́n máa yọ kúrò nínú salary. It is deductible. It's called interest on owner occupied property. It is deductible. If you invest in government bond, it is deductible. So cook one there. Then eléyìí fẹ́ ó technical jẹ́ ẹ jẹ́ ká lọ next slide. So addressing misconception and frequently asked questions. Àwọn ni kò san tax bó ti sọ tẹ́lẹ̀ gbogbo àwọn tá a bá ṣe business tó wàá bá ti wọ ní sọ́ọ̀bù ìjọba. Are there people exempt from taxes? Ẹni tí ó bá ti earn up to minimum wage kò ní san tax. Àwọn military wa nítorí iṣẹ́ takuntakun tí wọ́n ṣe no taxes. Gratuity, pension, income ni it is not taxable to our senior citizens. But jump slide then okay, in fact, for rent relief. So okay, next slide. So taba ní mo lè send slide tí ọmọ dọ́dọ̀ wá tí ìbọn ní dọ́dọ̀ wá jẹ́ ká kọ link tá à ń share yìí. That link takes you to a calculator. That calculator has been designed to give you what your tax should be. So àwọn kan ti jókòó àwọn committee tí government yàn wọ́n ti jókòó wọ́n ti design calculator. If you click on that link, it takes you to a website. Just provide your information. Provide correct information. No? Ẹni tí ò bá ní NHF kó má fi NHF sí. Ẹni tí ò bá ní pension kó má fi pension sí. Nǹkan tó máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ gbogbo ọ̀gí nìyẹn ṣe ní ṣe ń san NHF ṣe ń san pension ṣe ń san ilé ṣe ń san gbádá. Tẹ bá ti fi gbogbo details yẹn sí ẹ kàn click á san tax yín fún yín. Eléyìí tó jẹ́ monthly and annual á san fún yín. So bó ṣe jẹ́ nìyẹn.
We are taking on through the journey. Èyí ò lè gba èèyàn mẹ́jọ. Èèyàn mẹ́ta ló àná àtúntà mẹ́ta ìwà mọ́bí. Àwọn atókù jẹ́ ká kún ìbéèrè. I'll come round and take these questions. Èyí tó bá ti jọra wọn lẹ̀ ayọ̀. Èyí tí a bá fẹ́ kọ́ sáré bá wa dáhùn fún wa dáhùn. Ó wà bẹ́ẹ̀ lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ price yẹn for award lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ tó dárí nípa owó gbọ̀ngàn àwọn àfáàsì wọn sọ táàgì how much is your scholarship. Number 2. Eh? No, in the comment, question. Question.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. My question is on rent relief. When computing your baby calculation, there's a 30% relief on rent. But the government, I think it is hypocritical of the government to have put it at a maximum of 500,000. Because we all know the rent to pay. As if I'm paying 1.5 million, you are saying I'm entitled to maybe 50% of 1.5 million is just 300,000 as my rent is. How about the situation whereby I'm paying rent for myself, I'm paying for my mom, or we have couples that pull resources together to pay their rent, enjoy the relief, or we have Abdul that have different wives and you are paying rent on different houses, and the maximum at 500,000. If I'm having, if I have different addresses, is this the one that I gave my employer that I'll get to claim rent on?
Thank you for thinking for the Abdul who are paying multiple rent. Question on this side. Emma, you will very allocated. So my question is, as a Muslim, is it haram to reduce tax as a consultant? Is it haram to reduce tax? As a market woman, how does the market woman assess herself to pay tax? Thank you. Which part? About question is about the microphone. About question is people.
If I ask a question, as a businessman who operates with a company, how do they avoid double taxation? For instance, if you with the company and they want to pay for the transaction, they will have deduct withholding tax. By the time the money gets to the vendor's account, you are liable to pay for another VAT. Or even though you do not pay VAT, you are liable to pay for it. By the time you want to do a payee or do a direct assessment on that same transaction, how do we avoid that, sir? Then secondly, there are speculations that for a business needs to maximize the company LLC, what are the strategies or what's your take on for a business needs to switch to company? What are the advantages involved and what are the benefits? Bearing in mind that there is compliance cost. Thank you, sir.
So the third question will be for the third person. It's a question. Okay, so thank you. My questions are very simple. They are the questions for starters. The first thing, I do not have a team number. How do I get my team number if I do not have? You told us that we're expected to file tax returns on a regular basis. How do I file my tax returns? How do I go about it? Third question, you said for people working with the corporate sectors or thereabouts, your company is expected to file tax returns on your behalf. If they have not done that, how do you know whether they have done that or not? And how do you know that you need to quickly file your own tax returns? I've seen situations where you go to a place and they told you that even your employer, there has been deducting tax from you on a monthly basis. They refuse to they refuse to pay your tax, and they were deducting the money from you. So those are the I just thought of. I know there are questions for beginners, but it's going to be very, very beneficial. Thank you. All right. Questions, please. Ask them forward. You can write as much as you want to ask. We'll get the questions together and answers will get to you. Our lecturer is still here, but we have 2 lectures today. And the second lecturer has seated all through from beginning to this point. We also want to give him the microphone and he will be able to go and then give us his material. We will learn from him and we'll also take questions for us. All right. Okay. So the second lecturer will be taking us through stock investment and wealth creation. You'll be talking about how you can make money or increase your wealth by investing in Nigerian stocks or shares, or not just Nigeria, maybe some other place, and how you can manage it within the halal, acceptable Islamic stocks that you can put your money in. So put up the folder. But before then, while the technical team are working on that, I want to hand the microphone to our lecturer of today, Mr. Abdul Babalola. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I think the topic that I'm asked to speak on is financial intelligence. How do you create wealth using stock market, also other form of halal or permissible ways of making money? And I think, starting with taxation and us being aware of taxation itself, it's part of the intelligence that is expected of us. Because if we're making money and you're not using a tax efficient vehicle, you might be making money and government is taking larger part of that. And like my brother said, you are just expected to pay your own fair part of taxation, not paying unnecessary tax that you can prevent or you can avoid. Number 2 is that when you talk about financial literacy, or you're talking about financial intelligence, is for you to be aware of what is happening around you and knowing fully well that you must participate in economic activity. Because I think for us to start talking about financial literacy, there are some basic things that we must agree upon so that we can appreciate them and quickly move to the topic. Number 1 is that business economy or business activity is allowed in Islam. Because if not, we will not be talking about people paying zakat. That is number 1. Number 2, when you look at the objective of Sharia, you see that preservation of wealth, it's embedded in that principle. There are 5 of them. Preservation of life, but wealth was also part of it. You will also discover that many verses after Salat, it is zakat that you will see, meaning we must earn and we must pay zakat out of that earning. So for us, and we've seen many hadith, I think they said one day they finished Salatul Subi, and one of the Sahabas was like, he ran out of the mosque. When I say he walked out of the mosque,
Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying, where is he going to? They said, he is going to his place of what? Earning means of living. And he says that is best of jihad. So we must know that every Muslim must, I will use the word must, you understand, participate in economic activities. Now, financial literacy now explains to you, how do I optimize? How do I multiply that revenue that I'm earning? And that is where the concept of budgeting comes in. You must prepare. This is my source of income. This is my needs. Because you cannot satisfy your wants. You focus on your needs. And you must constantly, anytime you want to buy anything, you must ask yourself, do I need this or do I want this? Because if you want to satisfy all your wants, I don't think anybody have enough resource to do that. But we have enough to satisfy our needs. Once you do that, you will now start focusing on your expenses. How do I reduce my expenses? And also, how do I increase my income? And that is why you see people talking about multiple streams of income. Majority of us might be walking around without paying attention. Our people, àwọn Yorùbá ní pé ṣe bí ọ̀nà kan tí ò wọjà, ṣe bóun ló dífá fún télọ̀ tó tún ta ẹ̀kọ́. Torí pé tí àsìkò bá wá yá táwọn èèyàn ò bá ránṣọ, àsìkò kan ò ní sí táwọn ènìyàn ò ní jẹ̀kọ́. That is why you see many shops around you. You will see that woman, irrespective of what they are selling in that shop, wọ́n á ní fridge, wọ́n á máa ta omi tútù, wọ́n á máa ta soft drink. That's one. Nǹkan tó ń pa ń bẹ̀ yẹn, òun ló fi ń run expenses. They have other major source of income. So that becomes our responsibility. Once you start living, even for students, that they pay you allowances from your parents, you understand? You must find a way of sitting down to say, iye báyìí ló ń fún mi lóṣù. Oh, iye báyìí ló ń fún, yeah, I will speak to it. I'm laying the foundation. Iye báyìí ló ń fún ni mo ń gbà lóṣù. Nǹkan báyìí ni mo need. Once you start having excess, no matter how small, that excess must be what? Must be invested. You must send that thing to go and do additional work for you. Now, you must also understand what is happening in the economy for you to be seen as somebody who is financially literate or to be financially intelligent. What is inflation? That is why some people, you will see them, the system is working against them because they don't know. Which is a common thing. Maybe it's even something that the academy adopt. That any member of the academy that is known as a member, Toba Bimo, the society should give that child something from academy. Irú owó bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn, ẹ rí pé àwọn àfáà máa sọ pé tá bá ti ń ṣe kòmọ̀ àbí, wọ́n á tún ní pé owó okòwò ọmọ ni o, a fún lórúkọ owó okòwò ọmọ. But kí ló máa ń ṣẹlẹ̀? Ìjà ló máa ń dálẹ̀. Àbú máa ní pé òun lọ fún. Ájì á ní pé èmi mo pọn, èmi olóyún, èmi ni mo bímọ. No, owó okòwò ọmọ la pè é. Owó yẹn ó yẹ ká lọ fi invest fún ọmọ yẹn ni. Bọ́mọ ẹ bá ṣe wá ń dàgbà sí, bóyá ń dàgbà sí, bóyá a tún wò pé a fẹ́ dunnú. Instead táwọn máa fi lọ waste owó lórí Mr. Biggs, ẹ fi owó kún owó yẹn, kẹ́ fi tún increase investment fún ọmọ náà. Pé tá a bá ń ṣerú eléyìí, ó mì pé bí Abdullahi àbí Amina bó ṣe ń dàgbà sí ni investment wọn ṣe ń dàgbà. Tó fi ń jẹ́ pé tí Abdullahi bá parí university, tàdé wà consistent pẹ̀lú investment yẹn, a rí pé a easy fún wa nírú ọjọ́ graduation tá a bá sọ pé Abdullahi o ti ṣe medicine tán àbí accounting àti other related courses àwa ń sọ fún Abdullahi pé wo after tó ti parí tán yìí bíi 20 million yìí ni investment ẹ ti grow sí ẹ rí pé Abdullahi ò ní sí nínú àwọn brothers tó máa sọ pé ìdí tí mi lè fi ṣègbéyàwó ìtorí pé mi ò lówó ni ẹ rí pé a ti ràn ọ́ lọ́wọ́ láti rí irú àwọn nǹkan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ṣe. Now tá bá ti understand àwọn kìíní pé you start from managing your books because ṣe rí ìyàtọ̀ láàárín olówó àti àwọn tí wọn ò ní owó òun lélẹ̀ bí owó ṣe ń wọlé sí ọ̀dọ̀ wa lówó ń wọlé sọ́dọ̀ tiwọn náà but àwọn máa wá rán owó yẹn ṣe wọ́n máa invest ẹ̀ èrè tó bá wá yọ lórí owó yẹn làwọn máa ń ná bọ́ ráwọn ti apá kejì bó bá ṣe ń gba owó yẹn báyìí bẹ́ẹ̀ ni wọ́n ṣe ń ná wọn wá ní àjẹṣẹ́kù tí wọ́n máa lè fi invest in anything. Now àwọn investment wo ló wà àti pé ọ̀nà wo la lè fi approach wọn because I was asked to speak to capital market. Yes, èèyàn lè dá business sílẹ̀ àbí irú owó tí mo sọ yẹn tí wọ́n bá rí brother tó ní good business ẹ lè ṣe partnership under many Islamic contracts musharaka mudaraba you do that so that owó yẹn náà a lè máa mú nǹkan wá but tá a bá wá rí irú ẹ̀ a lè wá wo company tó dáa tó wà listed ní stock market tí a lè fi owó yẹn sí bí a ṣe ń ṣe òwò yẹn tí company yẹn ń jèrè àwọn náà a máa jèrè so investment in shares kí ni àwọn benefited next slide next so alákọ̀ọ́kọ́ ni pé tá a bá ra shares nínú company tó dáa bí company yẹn bá ṣe ń jèrè sí tí wọ́n give out dividend làánà máa gba dividend but mi ìmọ̀ bá ibi tá a ti rí báwọn kan ti ẹ̀ invest tó bá gba dividend wọ́n á sọ pé owó táwọn gbọ́dọ̀ ná ni a gbọ́dọ̀ ná kò di dandan ká ná tí a bá nídìí láti ná irú owó bẹ́ẹ̀ a lè fi ra more shares ṣé ìta àti ní so that next time tó bá máa san dividend tí wọ́n san lọ́dún yìí èyí tó máa san fún wa ó tún máa gbé pẹ́ẹ́lí sí so you can constantly increase your number of shares in that particular investment or you go elsewhere. Number two òun ni pé a máa ń sọ pé there are 4 factors of production: land, labour, capital and entrepreneur. But there is a major 5th one tí a kì í sábà mọ̀ ọ́ tá a mọ̀ tó yẹ pé bá ṣe ń ṣe ló wrong òun ni pé networking is very very key because tí n bá produce omi àwọn kan ni máa tà fún àwọn kan ló máa rà lọ́wọ́ mi irú àwọn tí wọ́n máa tà fún àbí tó máa rà lọ́wọ́ mi àbí nǹkan tí mò ń ṣe they will form part of my network whether I attract them but one thing we don't know màá dẹ̀ fún wa ní example ẹ wò ń sìn arépo lèmi ń gbé kí wọ́n wò pé kò sí Dangote cement ní arépo business yẹn dẹ̀ wù mí ṣe ọ̀nà wo ni mo lè fi gba stock market fi ṣerú ẹ̀ máa pe brother maybe Amira pé ẹjọ́ 1,000 yìí ẹ bá mi fi ra iye shares tó bá lè rà nù Dangote kò bá jẹ́ ẹyọ kan tí wọ́n bá ti ra shares Dangote yẹn fún mi kí ni mo fẹ́ fi yẹn ṣe by buying 1 unit of Dangote share mo ti wọnú network yẹn nìyẹn and join shareholders of Dangote even with my 1 unit ọjọ́ AGM mo fẹ́ build network mi and penetrate into Dangote group àbí màá wá tètè lọ sí AGM màá jókòó síwájú màá ti ka annual account wa dáadáa so that n bá ń sọ̀rọ̀ àwọn tó wà lórí òjókòó wọn á wò pé ẹni yìí ó mọ nǹkan tó ń sọ tí n bá náwó wọn ò lè sọ pé wọn ò tiẹ̀ ní béèrè ṣé shares kan ló ní ni àbí 10 so mo ti náwó ẹ máa gbọ́ mi ṣe máa sọ̀rọ̀ o kò ń ṣe bíi ti gbéraga o bó ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ ni màá ní thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and the board of directors of Dangote Cement Group. Let me for appreciate management for the way and manner you were managing our business. 1,000 Nimo Nimbel. But I say for the way and manner you've been managing our business. Yes, our business. Having gone through our annual account, I discovered that we don't have a distributive network or distributor around this area. And statistics shows me that over 500,000 cement is being consumed on monthly basis in Arepo. Surprisingly, all this is coming from our competitor. Mr. Chairman, sir, and the MD, if you won't mind, you understand, if you give me the distributorship in that axis, I'll be ready to deepen our market there. At the end of the day, Kilo Mashele, you could use it as being an engineer. You could use it for anything that you want to market. Today, Erelomi, Mongbela Dubowa, Tama Wope Wonsheyon, tí wọ́n bá bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí relate pẹ̀lú captains of industries, you'll be amazed. It is part of the benefit. It is part of what you can gain by investing in the capital market. Elomi, I know somebody. Gbogbo investment tó nínú àwọn company yẹn kò tó 50,000. Ọjọ́ kan la dẹ̀ ń sọ̀rọ̀. Ó ní Mr. Babalola, do you know that I just came back from US? The company sent us on a training to Harvard. Ó mi pé company to send him on a training to Harvard. Àwọn ló máa gba visa fún o. Àwọn ló máa sanwó plane o. Àwọn ló máa sanwó training o. Àwọn ló máa sanwó hotel. Wọ́n á tún fi nǹkan sí lápò. So what I'm just trying to say is with financial literacy and understanding, you can go and confirm. Wọ́n ṣe BUA AGM. BUA AGM. Because on later, wọ́n á complain for me. Wọ́n wá jókòó báyìí. Gbogbo àwọn tó wà ń bẹ̀ ọkùnrin ni wọ́n. Ní AGM ni o, woman yẹn kò ní tó 50,000 shares. Bóyá náwó nìyẹn, kó n fẹ́ contribute. Ó bá náwó, Samad bá recognize ẹ̀. Ó ní Alhaji, I want you to realize that in this your board, you are not gender sensitive. There's no female on your board. That one day, Odegba Mike, do you want to be a director? And the woman said yes. And that's how they co-opted her. So there are many things. What is the relationship that we can have with a company? We can be a distributor of their products. And we can be what? A supplier of the raw materials that they use in the company. But buying shares gives you that inroad to meet people. Taba lọ sí AGM. Mo máa dáhùn bàbá yẹn, àwọn bàbá arúgbó. Wọ́n máa ti attack management, your page 8, kò tálì pẹ̀lú page 4. Tó bá ti parí, they will just come forward. MD, congratulations. You see that my last daughter? Ó ti parí. Mo dẹ̀ fẹ́ kó wá serve lọ́dọ̀ yín. I don't know whether I'm communicating. So you have that opportunity there. You know, I'm talking about shareholders' rights. You can vote and be voted for. Some of us, we're experts in our field. We're well known. We're well read. Who says you cannot? Most of the people, you say so, they say executive director. You have non-executive director. Who says you cannot be that non-executive director? Àwọn non-executive director, wọ́n gbé mọ́tò fẹ́ lómi. But you must prove, and you don't. Some of them don't even have investment in some of these companies, but they understand what it is that they can benefit from that particular, opportunity. Next, this is just telling us that a lot of companies are there. Choose your area. Me, I'm preparing for retirement. Some of these things I'm telling you, some of these things I'm telling you are things that I'm thinking of. You understand? Where you start playing those roles, because those opportunities are there, and we call it playing or participating in corporate democracy. No, yes. So, next, I think this is just saying that we have different companies in different sectors that you can choose. You understand? It's not all of them that are Sharia compliant. You understand? We know them, banks, alcoholic drinks. I mean, you leave all those ones. But we have some of which I will show us. Next. So fixed income is another thing. We call it fixed income, but I'm not asking us to go there. We'll talk about the Islamic side of it. Next. So again, we've seen sukuk, and some of us are doubt whether there's anybody who has not heard about sukuk. One of the things that we've also done at the exchange is to introduce what we call non-finance board, which is a board that all the companies, any company you find on that board is Sharia compliant. And one of the things that you start seeing again is what we call Islamic commercial paper. Because generally commercial paper are coming, some people want fair owó sílẹ̀ for 10 years, for 20 years. They just want to be managing their liquidity. You understand? You start seeing Islamic commercial paper that you can put your money, is almost less than a year, and they will give you the rental that is approved. So let us also look at that space. But the difference between that is that when you buy fixed income, you are only entitled to your rental income. You understand? Whether it is, you are entitled to your rental income. Now, many benefits there. You understand? Use it to hedge against inflation. You can vote and be voted for. You have capital appreciation that you can also benefit from. So we have Sharia compliant index. One of the, part of being financially literate is this. You see the index, which I will reference now, is as another way through which the exchange and fund managers are saying, if you don't know what to do, just focus on this one. And from that, because those ones have been screened, and it will help you. So it's like, if you hear about NGX 30, what experts are saying is that this is the 30 most capitalized stocks that is listed on the exchange. So if I have 161, you understand, and somebody said they have 30 already, why can't I just go into that 30 and look at the best out of that 30? So we have many ideas, concepts that are coming now. Then let's go to exchange traded funds. Let me quickly explain that. Next. So we've explained why you should invest directly. Number one, if you ask me, I will always advise that if you don't have a business of yours, and if you cannot go into real estate because of the size, why not go into, you understand, something that you can invest, which is this. Now, most times, that my own preference is that because you will gain knowledge, you will understand everything. But when you hand over your money to somebody, you will make money without having the knowledge. One of them is mutual fund. One of them is exchange traded fund. What is exchange traded fund? Is where a fund manager pool people's funds together. You understand? And invest as a group. So let me explain now. All of us in academy, we now come together and say we want to invest jointly. Then somebody will now create that product, list it on the exchange. You understand? But we're no longer investing in Dangote directly. We are investing in a fund that is investing in Dangote. So I am a unit holder in the ETF, and it is the ETF that is a shareholder in Dangote. If we have a mission, we can use that to achieve that mission. So maybe we feel strongly that we need a presence in a particular company because of its strategy. And if I feel if I invest, I might not be able to do that. All of us collectively can come together, you understand, and invest in block and use that block to agree. Because if we have that block and what we have is sizable, we can say, many people don't know. What does it take to control a company? Somebody will say 55, Abi. You only need 5%. If I own 5%, let me use what was in the public domain. You knew when, what is his name, Otedola, bought into First Bank. He only bought 5%. But by buying that 5%, he became the single largest shareholder, and automatically he became the chairman of First Bank. And he controls First Bank today. Because you can never become anybody or anything in First Bank. if you don't get out, sorry, I'm just taking allies, I recognize. But then, Otedola have to approve, you understand, before you can become somebody in that particular, or you must comply with whatever is his requirement. So there are a lot of strategies that we can use for that. But this is exchange traded fund. It pulls funds together, it gets listed, and it is also traded. So the advantage there, if it is mutual fund versus exchange traded fund is that, there is what we call regulatory oversight. SEC is involved. Nigerian Stock Exchange is also involved. We want to be sure that somebody will not just come and collect people's money. Whatever it is that you say you are buying, you buy them and you warehouse it somewhere. And people cannot trade because you don't want to wake up tomorrow thinking I've bought into an ETF and the underlying asset is no longer there. So we provide that. There's also a trust structure to make sure that as we're setting it up, there's another company that is ensuring that things are done properly. And like I did mention, custody of the asset. If you say you pull our money together to buy Dangote shares, Abi, and you want to do this, government will say, show us the Dangote that you bought, and they will restrict you from selling that shares, because I can sell ETF to you, and the Dangote that I'm using for that decide to sell it again, and by the time you people come around, you'll see that what you are relying on that you've invested in is actually not there again. Next. So this is just telling us various types of ETFs that we have. Most of them are index based. They are tracking index. Some of them are also commodity based, like new gold. You can see new gold there. The underlying asset is gold. So if you buy new gold, it means that as the price of gold is changing in international market, your own investment is also going up. In fact, that new gold, when we introduced it into the market, 2011, it was less than 2,000 naira per unit. Today is more than 50,000 naira per unit. And it's also because Nigerian market is not reflecting the current international market of gold. So that gives an opportunity, because it means that 50-something thousand is still very, very, exactly, and cheap. So, but I'm not saying you should go and buy it. You have to talk to your financial advisor. So these are the indices, ETFs that we have, but majority of them are based on it. Yes, these are the indices. Please ask questions. So today I'm a Muslim, and I'm going to speak more to the Lotus Islamic Index, because it means that Lotus and Stock Exchange, they've looked at all the listed companies at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, using all the necessary criteria to select companies that are, to some extent, Sharia companies. So as a Muslim, if I want to start investing, the next thing I'll be asking myself is, what is the composition of that Lotus Islamic Index? And if I know what is there, I can pick whatever it is that I want to pick, or I can invest in the Lotus Islamic Index itself. Next. So this is the composition of the Lotus Islamic Index. In there you have Aradel. Sorry, let me say this. We're not saying these companies are operating according to Islamic Sharia. You understand? But they've been screened that, number one, what they do itself is not against the principles of Islamic Sharia. Number two is that in terms of ratio, debt to equity ratio, how they use debt, all these things are factored in before they now say these 11 companies, as of today, they are very close to being very Sharia compliant. And meaning, if I don't want to invest on the ETF, I can now come and say it is out of these 11 companies that I want to choose a company that, and today, if you check the return on any of these companies, these 11 companies, any of them, please go and check returns on them. Some of them have returned Year to date, more than 100%, 200, 300%, meaning, yes, that's what I'm saying. Even if you look at Jais, any one of them that you look at, that is in this. So I'm just telling you that instead of, if you really want to, the first thing is focus on those indices, because those indices have done some screening. Then you can now, I mean, you can see we started from 161, but we're now looking at 11 companies. Next. You know, although I didn't update this, but this, you can see the diagram. It's just showing you. Some of them have gone higher again, meaning if you had anybody that had invested, in fact, one of the things you can do is to ask yourself, what is the return? Today, I wrote a paper yesterday. As of yesterday, the NGX All Share Index have returned 49%. The meaning of that is that if I invest, let's assume that you invested 1,000 in January. By today, the worth of your investment will be close to 1,500, meaning you are getting something over and above inflation. But that is on the average. Some of these individual companies have returned 300, 400%. So let's continue, because I know time. Oh, Okomu. Sorry, you know, let me say two things about Okomu and Presco. I think since, go back there. Since, no, I need Okomu. No, I need Okomu. Since 2019 was when I've been using Okomu as a case study. And it's simple. Don't let anybody make you believe that investment in this equities market or in the stock market is meant for some people. It's not. It's you you understand what is going on. Okomu is into what? Production of palm oil. The British came to Nigeria or Africa because of ekpopupa, not crude oil. I don't know whether I'm communicating. That was what led to the problem that they had with Jaja of Opobo. Because Jaja of Opobo is saying, buy the palm oil over on top of sea. Don't come into the hinterland. But they don't want him. He was in between the farmers that are producing palm oil and the foreigners, the Europeans that are buying it. But you know, they just felt we should take him out so that we can go into the hinterland and even seize, you know, and say we're colonizing these people. You can check. Palm oil costs more than crude oil. That's what many people don't know. And now, you now have this company, they produce palm oil, they export it. That's why you can't see Okomu. You can't go to any supermarket and say, you want to buy Okomu. You'll be paying premium. And when you look at palm oil, those of us that did chemistry, saponification, a lot of industrial use, they use this product for. So you can imagine, whoever bought Okomu, Okomu is over 1,000 now. Imagine somebody buying it in 2020, less than 5 years ago, at 91 naira. Okomu is over 1,000. Presco is 1,120 something. Sorry, you moved. Go back. Where is Presco? So I think what I'm just saying is this. It's simple. Let's move on because I know time. So we're just saying, what are those things that you consider before you do investment? It's not something complex. Let me use this example. A time it was, maybe early 2000, I used to facilitate for CIBN. Around Sabo, at the time we were even using this compound for that. Yes, I know. I was there, you know. So I used to facilitate for them. On a Sunday, around Sabo, I'm just telling you how you see opportunity. Around Sabo, I finished my lecture that day. But I saw people lining up. I was teaching information technology. You know, I was the one telling people where information is going to in 90, you understand? So I saw people lining up. I said, in Lagos, Lagosians will line up on a Sunday. There's no military man enforcing anything. Whatever is happening must be something of interest. So what were they doing? 2003 precisely. They were withdrawing money from ATM machine. That was the first time that I'm seeing that. And that was what I was teaching in class. So for me, and I said, it means that in the nearest future, this business will become a successful business. And what was it that I premised my decision on? The banks that will need the service, they've just finished raising 25 billion. Then, you understand? And this service is becoming acceptable. And that is what I'm teaching in class. So I just move closer to the ATM machine and say, who is the manufacturer of this platform that they use in delivering this service? Because that person must be making money. And the software. It happens to be NCR. So, NCR, a listed company. And I went home. I went to my study. I brought out the annual account of NCR. Everything about that company was negative. They were negative, you know, the worst period. In their annual account, they even said what? The Ikeja bomb blast affected one of their companies. Everything. Chief Ojora stated everything negative. So I now said, yes, I agree. And we have a principle at the exchange. Once a stock price is negative, once we get to 50 kobo, we will floor it then, that you can't go below 50 kobo. But that is not the practice now. So I did all the strategy, listen to what the management is saying they will do to revive the company. You understand? So I just felt, yes, I agree with them. I can see this, I can see this. So I checked my bank position. I have a 25,000 naira that I don't have need for. So when I got to office on Monday, then they used to allow me to buy shares, but now I can't buy. So I called the stockbroker to say, can you help me buy 50,000 units of NCR? Because 50 kobo, 50,000, 25,000 naira. The broker bought my 50,000. He bought 200,000 for himself. So I said, broker, why are you buying? He said, Mr. Babalola, why are you buying? But because it was a long-term investment, I wasn't expecting anything in the short run. After like about 8 years, the first dividend that NCR paid was a dividend of 3 naira per share. On an investment of 50 kobo, I collected, so total investment now, 25,000. I collected 150,000. About 3 years after that, they paid another 3 naira. So on that investment of 25,000 naira, I've collected 300,000 now. I still have those shares till today. Nobody is asking me, what is the price of NCR now? It's about 60 naira. So meaning that investment of 25,000 is now 3 million. Am I communicating? It's now 3 million. If you check now, NCR got to 70 naira. But I'm not asking you to go and buy NCR. I'm just telling you that if you are very, very observant and you watch what is happening in your environment and you follow the capital market, because one, don't forget, if you want to invest in equities, you are investing in a company. You must know the company's business. You must know the product. You must know this at the render. You must ask yourself, how acceptable is that product? How acceptable is that service? Is it a service that people cannot do without? That will tell you the strength. And I did something here. You see, when we create financial goals or any goals, if you have any goal that you want to achieve, why is it that most of us don't achieve our goals? It's because we don't build a system that will deliver that goal. Am I communicating? It is not enough to say, I want to achieve this goal. Show me the system that will automatically deliver that goal. Our brother said something here about using voluntary contribution. How many of us say, some of us is too late because we're close to, you understand? But for the guys that are just starting their career, do you know that if you decide today that I will put 100,000 into my voluntary contribution, if you do that for a number of time, your retirement is guaranteed. In fact, when before they messed it up, I used to use the voluntary contribution. And I said when they messed it up, initially, the rule is that anything you put into voluntary contribution, many people don't understand. You're already making gain immediately. And I'll give you an example. My tax bracket is 24%. So it means any additional 1 million that I earn, I will pay government 240,000. So if I divert that 1 million into my voluntary contribution, I've already gained 24%. I've already gained 24%. Now they will still invest that money. They will record it for me as 1,000. But if I collect the money, I will have received 760. But if I say, don't give me the money, put it into my voluntary contribution, it is 1,000 that will be there. 1 million that will be there. And every month, immediately, the PFA is investing the money. And, so for me, the rule then is that don't touch the money for 5 years. I was able to set aside a reasonable amount of money. So if they pay me bonus, while others are collecting, I'll sign off. Then, they now said people were using it for money laundering. They changed the rule. That changing the rule does no longer align with me. I collected millions. Saving money and turning it to investment. Please, I will say this. We should not be afraid of paying tax. We use the knowledge of tax to our own benefit. In fact, Amir, I think what I would suggest is that if we have tax experts among our brothers, let them sit down with people that are running businesses and teach them. You buy fuel, collect receipt. I don't want to claim, you understand, but when you understand it, you will see, he mentioned something on mortgage. MREF is there. Some Muslim brothers are already trying to come up with a product. That MREF allows you to raise up to 100 million. You understand? They will structure it for you. You will collect 100 million and the rental that you'll be paying is about 9%. You could use your tax to also get a property for yourself. So I think once we understand that, you also know your risk. You understand? Know your risk. Find a system. Some of us in our offices, we join cooperative, you join system that, I want to be setting aside 100,000. It will be difficult once the money gets to you. Go and sign off. They take the 100,000, you can't even see it. It's gone. And by the time you come back in 12 months' time or in 24 months' time, you're talking about having about 2 point something, and you can use it for that purpose. I think so let's understand all the different asset classes, what we can use them for, what we can use them to achieve. I've said, even for us, once you get to a certain age, you need to plan your retirement. It's part of financial literacy. I tell people, Amir Daoud, this day, some of us we are turning sukuk as our own rental income. Because if I have 100 million now, I cannot even buy land in Lagos. Not to talk of building a property, Abi. But I can take my 100 million and go and buy a sukuk that gives me a rental of 20%. By so doing, it means that every million. Tell me the value of your property that will give you rental income of 20 million. But whereas, exactly. But I can convert sukuk. You understand? Especially for those of us who are going into retirement, you are doing business. Because a time will come, you won't have this strength. A time will come, you might not be able to cope with the new dimension and challenges that is coming. But that one is guaranteed. You can even be, I'm not criticizing real estate, but you can have a very fantastic building property and you have a bad tenant. You understand? But this one is guaranteed. So some of us start looking at these asset classes and start putting something that head or tail, you'll be able to maintain your level of health. Another thing that I want to say quickly is Takafu is the Islamic insurance. Let us also have that as part of our investment. Something happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was going to my office and these 4 guys were in a car and I think this driver slept off. And the next thing I had was, he hit my car from back and my car hit somebody in front. And I think one of the passengers was so smart to see that, oh, this is a Muslim. So he just said, Abu Salam Alaikum, disarm. So and I said, the problem has started. Let's go to a mechanic workshop. They did the evaluation and said, we're going to pay over 300,000. So I said, I don't have the money. So I asked them, because he's a Muslim brother. I said, do you have insurance? He didn't even know. But he went to his friend and brought out one paper. He said, is it this one? So I saw a third party. No, I saw a third party and I said, no problem. You are not going to pay anything. The insurance will take care of it. But when we started, the person that did the third party for them did not upload it on the portal. So when they had that agreement, I sent it to my own insurance because I have comprehensive, because it's official car. So there's the guy said it's not on the portal. So they started begging. It is only 50,000 that we had. You understand? So later they confirmed. And I told them, once your paper is confirmed, I don't need your 50,000 because you've insured this car. I don't know whether I'm communicating. And that was what happened. Those guys went away without paying a kobo because they've paid for insurance of 15,000. So you can imagine, they paid insurance 15,000. That covers them for a damage 2,000. So insurance, Takafu is what I'm saying. They are things that you need. You must have them before you need them. Because when you need them and you don't have them, it becomes more expensive. I don't know whether, so please, it's not, we should not limit it there. I am seeing we're getting older. Academy can put together, you understand, some form of investment, work off, something like life insurance like my brother mentioned, health insurance too. We can do collective health insurance so that when the member is having health challenges, you understand, at least we have, first line of protection, which is coming from that, first line of response to say, take this brother, let's access this investment. It's part of it. Because anytime you're talking about financial literacy, intelligence, you discover that what it's all centered on is that what others are doing with ease, we should not be doing it with difficulties. You understand? So I think Salaam Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Because of time.
Spoke about how to protect the West from the government so that they don't come at you and say what they compliance is cheaper. That's that reason. The second lecture talks about how to expand it, how to make your income here, how to make it more. No other day like today on this camp. This camp today, today's lectures or program has been so inspiring, connecting, and very engaging. However, you all agree with me that we have limited time. And we need to take questions, but we need to manage questions. I want to thank Mr. Afeez for us staying true to listen to the second lecturer and also waiting patiently to answer some of those questions you have asked earlier. If you have questions for the second lecture, raise up your Javito. You see. First lecture, no. Write it piece paper, give it to me. Second lecture. Second lecture. Second lecture. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will take 2 for the remaining 3. Mustafa, write it. Write it. Write it. I'll come and collect it. You two, I will take your question. 2. On the sister side, I see I share them. Okay, number 1, second lecture. Second lecture. Second lecture. 3. Sisters are very standard with 3. I don't know where we are going with these 3. I will take the question, but he will respond after the first lecturer has responded to the outstanding question. However, please make it quick. No comment. Don't start the second lecturer. Don't start the first lecturer. Just ask it. Thank you. Okay, right. Okay. Second. Right. Third minute. You want to go to the power? Oh, yeah.
So from your lecture, I understand that you said that stock exchange investment is better than real estate. If I'm right, I want to be sure. Actually, I was going to ask the question before you talk on the book and the real estate. I was going to ask the question that which is better to invest in? Is it real estate or stock exchange? And another thing is that I don't understand in stock exchange, dividend is shared. But in cases when the companies make loss, is it also shared among the shareholders, or it is only the companies that get affected? Then, next question. I want to make a big scenario. Assume that someone has 100,000 naira, and the person has an option of investing in stock exchange or into a business of like buying and selling for a daily, making daily sales. The person, the question may not necessarily need the money for survival, for daily, you understand, daily upkeep. But the person just wants to use the money for something. Yes. So which?
Noted. Thank you. The question I wish you cannot ask. Can you?
Oh, let me run into that. So the question I want to ask, let me just maybe you didn't touch that aspect, but it's an aspect of the way some guys focus on organization. So for instance, let me start from the case of access. We heard about how high how successful organization of them and how some other guys are doing. So I want to ask, if somebody eyes an organization now, like how many percentage of the total shares ownership and that person buy, for instance, before he can earn that position of maybe taking the total acquisition of that organization, the total ownership of that organization, or having a very solid stake in it. And what does license CSCS or stock exchange? How do you guys try to manage that aspect, whereby people will not support other person or other people's organization via the aspect of purchasing shares of shares? So that was my own question.
I'll give the microphone to our first lecturer to answer the SY question.
Amin.
So I have a question from a sister on the subject of CIN, NIN. Tabari villages, they have two common elements, and that is the IN. They are both identification numbers. Ideally, and up until now, what the law has required the bank and other financial institutions is to obtain your TIN, your tax identification number. And that tells you clearly what they want to do with that number. They want to use it to monitor your transaction. But because it has created this panic in the system, because for you to get TIN, you have to actually approach the tax authority. And because we're trying to collect taxes, pay taxes, and you are relying on them to go and register for taxes, it's not realized that this one is looking like own goal. Yeah? So they said what? Last, both numbers, CIN and AIN, they are unique numbers, they identify you as an individual. So why do we have to change it to go and get a CIN when we can use the NIN? So where we are today is that very soon, people those who have their CIN go to the place with your NIN. And that's what we're telling the government. Don't, data portability. You can use one data set for multiple purposes, right? So, and that's what we're going to see. As of today, Lagos is, for instance, the first register for tax. It requires your BVN or NIN. So even though you have a TIN for Lagos, they are already linking your BVN and NIN, your TIN, right? But again, going forward from next year, we are going to see a rollout where your existing TIN is completely replaced. Our NIN will now serve as TIN. So there won't be a case of I don't have it. Because that's your NIN will do that tax, but it's unique to you, right? And so that is the clarification around TIN, NIN. So whatever one you have is going to be. As of today, TIN is going to be used, but from next year, we are going to start using our national identification number as tax identification number. Rent relief, I left it out because, again, I didn't get into technical, but in summary, yes, the first concern is government will give us a relief of 500,000 naira. When average rent today is probably 1 million naira, depending on what you pay or what you know. Again, it's a relief. They're not trying to give you they're not trying to refund your entire rent back to you. So it's a relief. A relief is a relief. Whatever you get is what you take. We understand the sentiment. It doesn't seem to be in line with the reality of our environment. But the point is taken. We are waiting for the state tax authorities to tell us how they want to operationalize that relief, right? So circular to the issue. And that would guide the HR of your company in terms of what they ask you to do. But essentially, you can imagine that you will need to provide the receipt, right? So you want to claim the receipt. The government is saying, if you are paying rent, I want to ease your hardship. Give me evidence that you are paying rent, and we'll take a deduction from your salary before calculating your taxes, right? Of course, you can expect that you will be required to provide evidence of absence. Two documents at least, or one or both. Your rent receipt and maybe a rent agreement. And what they're also trying to do by that, those landlords earning rental income, that they think they're earning tax-free income, we're also trying to track them. So, why try to again, because they could have given that rent relief without saying bring documents. But when you start implementing it next year, they will say bring evidence, let us see the evidence of the name of the landlord, and they also go after those ones making rental income. So yes, you cannot claim double relief on a property. But like I said, how this will play out, the state tax authorities will come up with a guideline on what we should provide to employers and to what extent we can get that benefit. But you are very spot on. 20% of your rent, subject to a maximum of 500,000 naira, is the related question. Is it around to reduce taxes? Because if it is, then I'm out of job. But that's what I'm saying. That there are legal ways to reduce taxes, and we discussed them. Called tax optimization. When my brother talk about tax efficient products, there are products that help you deal with the taxes. So, for instance, as an individual, by saying the interest income you make from government bonds, nobody will tax. You are reducing your taxes. Is it illegal? Absolutely not. So there are legal ways to taxes, there are illegal ones. Illegal, clearly around. Legal, allowed. Not be confused. I think I have two more. Yes, double taxation. And we get this VAT and WH, they are two different taxes. So there's nothing double when transaction attracts VAT and it's also subject to withholding tax. Let me give you a very simple scenario. If I'm selling funds, government is saying when you sell funds, please, as my agent, because we're all agents of government, as my agent, help me collect your funds, right? From whoever you're selling to. Government is also telling the person that you're selling to, as my agent. So both seller and buyer are agents of the government. So government is facing the buyer and saying, as my agent, help me deduct 5% before you guys sell the funds. Is that double tax? No. The VAT of 7.5, it is the buyer that is suffering it, right? The 5% that is deducting, it is the seller that is suffering it. So there are no double taxes. Now, coming to filing tax reform, whenever somebody deducts taxes from your money in the form of withholding tax, it's a credit. The law is saying, we're not exactly saying that is the end of the tax that you pay. No, it's called a withholding tax. We just want to take a portion from your income, pending the time you file the tax return, which is next. So why we're taking 2026 few days. Whatever transaction January to December, do you know when you're going to pay the tax? And file it June 2027. It is not realistic for the government to hold their hands and wait until June 2027, but they have 6 months at the end of the year for companies to file your return. It is not realistic for the federal government to wait till June 2027 to collect tax on the transaction date January 2026. The government is saying, you know what, as they are doing business, whoever is buying from you, let them be removing something like can be 2.5%, it can be 5%, can be 10%, depending on the transaction. For rent, the withholding tax rate for rent is 10%. So when you now come in June 2027, you file the return, whatever tax that you pay, you now remove your tax credit. Is it double? It's not double, right? Because whatever withholding tax is offered is a credit. We call withholding tax an advanced form of collecting income tax, and VAT is not your own tax. You are collecting it from the person you are selling to on behalf of the government. So there's no double taxation in that regard. Market business, how do they file tax return? Obviously, you can be a market woman and be enlightened. If you are enlightened, tax return is something you probably can file for yourself. If you are a market woman and you are on letter, clearly you will need to engage a consultant, right? But the filing tax return is simple, right? The process has been digitized by some stage. Go online, provide the details, declare your income, system will calculate taxes, and it will also link to your bank application and your pay, right? The big work here is when you cannot provide details of your transaction. So for some people that are doing business, they don't have files in here, they don't know revenue, cost, they don't know. But if you have this data, I assure you, using Lagos as an example, If you have the data of your revenue, your expense, you can file the tax return yourself. So, but like I said, at this point, because it's a new culture that we're trying to embrace, you will most likely find yourself needing somebody to hold your hand and guide you through the tax filing process. Maybe by the time you do it once or twice, you should get the hand of it. But it's not just market women. Even those that are not in the market, you will probably need help with filing at home. Switching to company from a business name, I understand where that person is coming from. Because you see, companies, if you do business of 50 million naira and turnover, they are saying don't bother about taxes. As a business owner, individual, business name, business worth 50 million naira. Of course, not on turnover, not to be on profit. But the law is not saying business owner, if your revenue threshold is 50, you don't pay tax. But I think that's is deliberate. They want to bring you into the formal tax net because it's harder to get taxes as company. Business name, you probably don't have an office. They probably doing business from your room. So the idea is that ultimately government is intentional about bringing more people into the formal sector. So it's a great as we say. If you want to take it, by all means, take it. Right? Of course, lawyers have said the difference between business and company from a legal standpoint. How to get things to employment, just ask the employer. If they don't give you things, it only means one thing, they won't be filing taxes for you. If you're in employment, just ask the employer for your if they cannot provide it, it only means that they are not filing the tax. If you are not in the formal employment, you can go online. If you go to e-tax, call e-tax, LRS, just Google LRS website, it will pop up. Take it to the website. That provides your BVN, or NIN. I think better BVN or NIN, and generate the tax number for you. So it's not simple. If you're in Lagos State, it's not hard at all. Yes, you can also use your joint tax code number. How do I validate? How do I find tax? Just address it. For this first one, you probably need to speak to a consultant to help you. When I say consultant, it doesn't mean someone that will collect money from you. We often have friends, people have ideas about this thing, so get someone to help you. But again, it's saying it's simple, at least for people. Just provide the details. It's digitized. You're not going to get somebody, you're not carrying stuff for legal. You're not doing it. You're going to the website and you're declaring all of the information. How do I validate the employer? By first thing, asking them about the thing. Get the thing from the employer. Just go to. So I keep talking about the LIS website. They have the chat box. The chat box. That you see in the lower portion of the website. Just click on it. Someone doesn't get to attend to you at least during office hours. Just tell them that provide it and tell them that you want to validate the returns that are filed against the tax license. They will try to ascertain that you are the actual owner of that thing. Once they have convinced, they will provide you the information of your employer file. It's not so hard, at least for those of us in Lagos, where the process is very, very digitized. For other states, it means that you ask it, and you may have to go to those tax offices if the process is not electronic to validate.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much, sir. And this is the second question for the second lecture.
First, Jazakumullah khairan for the. Okay. So my question is, we often get similar information about stock, shares, and buying into company. But I think the main challenge I've been experiencing is getting a guide, like a step-by-step guide on how to enter. The barrier to enter into investment is quite low compared to that of stock. So can you give us like an outline guide take this step to have your money in a particular company.
So I think the first question is from one of us. I mean, our question is she wants me to compare real estate with sukuk. Real estate is the real business. You understand? Because, I mean, you can't get it wrong, but people will tell you location, location, location. But the reality is, we are not at the same level. The amount of capital that we have also differ, and we want to participate in investment. Even in the stock market, there's what we call REITs, real estate investment trust, that instead of you having to set aside millions of naira, but you want to have exposure to real estate, you can buy into REITs, meaning, you know, real estate companies invest in many real estates. You buy shares inside that company, so as the company is collecting the rental from the various clients of theirs, they are also distributing that to you as dividend. So real estate is good because of its appreciation. It also has a lot of tax benefits. But the example that I cited is somebody that is almost at a retirement age. Or I'm also saying there is the benefit again that you can use sukuk for. Take for instance, I have my daughter that I'm still training in the university. I know how much school fees I'm going to pay. To guarantee that our university education is guaranteed, I can buy a sukuk that gives me annual rental income, and I use that to pay her school fees. And by the time she finishes her education, I have my initial capital back. So if let me put an example. I have a daughter, she's attending the university, they pay her school fees every year is 500,000. And I put together 5 million to buy sukuk. And the sukuk is giving me a rental of 20%. It means from that 5 million that I invested, I'll be collecting 1 million every year. From that 1 million, I'll pay my fees and probably still have a change. But what I've done is we call it liability management. I've identified that liability or responsibility, and I've given something to fund it without being a burden on me. So with or without me, that is surprised. You know, financial literacy, education, if you're very smart, is for us to gain in this world and the hereafter. Today, if I'm to conduct an interview that I need Baba of Lagos, you'll be surprised how many people will say it's because the man set up something that is still funding the call to Adhan. So investment is not only about this world. You must also use investment to put something aside for yourself, so that when you are no longer here, it can still fund some certain activity. Whether you call it endowment, whether you understand, because you can, I mean, our prayer, we are all striving towards ensuring that we leave something for our children and direct them. But part of my will, I can do investment that says every money that comes out of this, every year that they are doing academy end of the year event, 3 million, 2 million out of my dividend should be to that. And it's there. So you can use investment to benefit yourself in this world and that of the hereafter. So I think I've explained that. Yes, companies pay dividend if they make profit. If they don't make profit, they will not pay anything. And they will not come to you as an investor to say, you should come and return anything. So it is only when they make profit that they pay dividend. You also created a scenario that if you have 100,000, yes, there is what we call velocity of money. That is why in Yoruba Palace they said, Toro ya osan to CC, you know, that is stable there. So if I have 100,000 and I have a business idea that I can turn around that 100,000 through business. That would be my number one option. But as that business is making money, the profit that I'm making from that money, in order to create multiple streams of income, I can do two things. Use it to expand the business, or start using that proceeds and start using it to buy things. I don't know when I'm communicating. All of them are allowed. But I think if you have business, you have a talent, you have a competency, you know that you can turn around this money and you have time, I would advise that you use that money to run that business. Whatever profit you are now making from the business, you can also passively be making money by doing investment. The next question is about business takeover. What percentage do you need? Really, you don't see, for every time companies is doing recapitalization, that is why anybody that wants to go into business, my advice for them is don't go into business that you are not ready to get it listed, that you are not ready to run it up to standard. Because if you do, somebody else will target that business and will take it over from you. So that is why when you see all this capitalization that is happening, you will see that maybe the existing shareholders or owners of the business, they can no longer continue with it. They can no longer raise the capital. Then they will be looking for who will come and buy them. Look at what happened to Diamond. They didn't take over Diamond. Diamond was surrendered. You understand? So, but in terms of your question, percentage, for you to take and become a serious stakeholder in a company, once you have 5%, you can request that you want to have somebody to sit on the board on behalf of your interest. 5%. You have that right to say, look, I'm just not ordinary shareholder. Because that is what the law says. Once you start having 5% in a company, the law says that even the company and the annual report account, they must show the whole world that you must have this side of it. And it means that at that point, you can say, you might others might own 95, but you're becoming a stakeholder because you have somebody sitting on the board. But you know, majorly, we don't encourage hostile takeover. But you know, I don't also want to discuss strategy. There's a way you fight back. If I own a company and I'm seeing that somebody wants to do hostile takeover, there are legitimate ways by which I can fight back. You understand? And ensure that I prevent that person. But most time, what everybody wants is a friendly, relationship to say, look, I can't continue with this. You saw how our banks were now asked to raise their capital. You understand? If you see merger and take over happen, as a result of that. So I think the other question here is, how can someone gain access to investing in company? Is it online or virtual way? I think we have, is it 2 or 3 of our 4 charter stock brokers in academy? Have you? Yes. No, 4. 4, I'm sure. 4. I know what I'm saying. Stock broker, Brother Onimago, another one. You. No, I'm not. No. I know what I'm saying when I say. And there is one of our brothers, the one that is working in that office. Yes. So what I'm just saying is, whoever is interested in, since you know these brothers and sisters, just approach them. But to answer this question, some of these things are, you need a stockbroker. That's number one. And when I say you need a stockbroker, because the way the market is designed, when you want to pay, you have to pay through a stockbroker. You understand? But today, we liberalize access to the market. Once you go through a stockbroker, some of them give you an app. Through that app, you can see what is happening in the market. You can do the buying and selling yourself. You understand? But the good thing that I would say to patronize people there is because you know them, you can constantly engage them, and they will constantly give you more information about the market. Where do we find our ways? I think I've answered that. Just go through a stockbroker, they will guide you, and you also have some websites that gives you more information, more intelligence. One of them is the Nigerian Stock Exchange website, SEC website, CSCS. Then you have things like parametrics, you know, that constantly churn out information in different ways so that you can know what's happening at investment. This one says, can a Muslim invest in companies like telecommunication, Facebook, and X? I think all of them have something in common. They are in that space. So, you know, when you say, can I invest in something? Telecommunication itself, at the first level of screening, there's nothing wrong with it, Abi, because they're not doing anything wrong. Discover that one of them is doing something that is not in line with Islamic principles. But if you look at telecommunication, MTN, Airtel, they are on the phase of it, on the first level of screening. What they are doing is in line. They enable us to communicate. Facebook is doing the same thing, except to now go deeper and start seeing things that they are doing. Then, you know, Islam has said we should leave what we're in doubt for that which we're not in doubt. That's why you see that in companies, you have thousands of companies that you can choose from. Once anyone does not fit in your screening, you move to another one. But for telecommunication, Facebook, and X, for me, at level 1 screening, I think 3 of these companies, you can invest in them. But subsequent screening is what I cannot say. Can you throw more light on Bamboo investment shares? So Bamboo is an investment platform. They are also, please, one thing you must be careful of. Any platform you are using to do investment, make sure that those platforms are registered. Securities and Exchange Commission. You understand? License. Because if any problems, if there is problem tomorrow, nobody will come to your rescue. Because they don't know that platform. And that platform can shut down. But to this question, Bamboo is a licensed, we call it digital stockbroker. They have that digital stockbroker license. So you can invest through Bamboo. Bamboo also, whatever it is that you're doing for Bamboo, especially as it relates to Nigerian shares, you are indirectly doing it on the exchange. That is what I mean by them having digital license. I also need you to throw more light on car insurance. Car insurance does not necessarily have to be the conventional insurance. In fact, the Takafu is better. You know the advantage of that in conventional insurance. If I buy insurance and I do not use it in a year, that is the end of my money. But in Takafu, which is the equivalent of Islamic insurance, if I pay 200,000 comprehensive insurance and I did not use anything, at the end of the year, they will do, there's a process for it. I don't want to understand. Then they will do profit sharing so they can still return money back to me. It's only Islamic insurance that does that. If you buy an insurance, Islamic insurance, and you didn't have cost to use it, the tendency is that they will do profit sharing, support, and that will also come to you. Can you have access to the slides? The answer is yes. And I think my brother says step by step is this. Before I happen, it's a mindset thing. I want to start investing. Then you start seeking for knowledge. You start looking at companies. You know, this is what I tell people. Before you start investing, go to your household. What are those things you cannot do without? What are those things that your neighbor cannot do without? What are those things that over 200 million Nigerians cannot do without? Then you ask yourself, who are the manufacturers of this company? For this product. What are the other products that they have? How do they source for their raw materials? Is it locally or internationally? When you do all these things, you understand? Then the next thing is for you to approach a stockbroker. And typically, it's just like what we do in the conventional market. Is what I also advise you today. I've mentioned 4 stockbrokers today in this our forum. You approach Brother Alimabo, I have 100,000. What do you say I'm investing? He says buy A, B. You ask Akeokewe, he says buy B, D. You can ask question now. Why are you not recommending this one? You will share that intelligence. You go to Amira Aisha. You understand? She also gives you her own recommendation. You see that you are adding your own knowledge with their own knowledge. But in terms of for you to start executing, once they make up that, you approach a stockbroker, they will onboard you by helping you do KYC of you and help you create an account in CSCS. Once you have an account in CSCS and they open an account for you, based on their advice, you can now start selecting the security of interest. Then, if you're starting, you can start small. Don't rush in at the same time. Start small, start moving closer. Please, let me tell you something. If you are a shareholder, if I buy shares in Dangote, look at it, I co-own that company with Alhaji Atiku. It means that whatever Alhaji Atiku knows, I must try as much as possible to know, because we are running business together. Am I communicating? And for those of us who are preparing for next year, Dangote Petrochemical is coming. Petrochemical will come first. The refinery will come next, and you will see NNPC will follow, and there are other companies that will follow. So these are hope that next year more companies will come. My brother said something too, which I believe we should know. When God, whether you like it or not, government always use tax to fund their expenditure. But there is this direct tax and there is this indirect tax. When government is borrowing, it is still a form of taxation, but people don't know. Because when I start devaluing your money, you are also paying tax. What 50,000 can buy before? I need 70,000 to buy it now. I'll pay a tax of 20,000. Oh, it's technical, yes. But what I'm just saying is that for us in investment, when you now see government shifting to taxation, it means that government don't want to borrow the way they were borrowing before. What now happens is that it frees company to now start borrowing money, and once that happens, you see that the cost will come down because there's no overcrowding. So next year, the tendency that equities will perform or outperform what we did this year is very, very high. So my advice is that even if we're not doing it for ourselves, we're not doing it for our children, let's do it for our what? Our children unborn. Plan for them. And I said something that I'm also going to emphasize again. There's nothing stopping us here as an organization to say, you have a policy. Anybody that gives back to a new child, it is our child. We want to be seen to be contributing to that child. Let's call our partners. This is 100,000. Use it to buy investment for that child and ask the parents to match it. You understand? And you monitor that investment. We'll be surprised that directly or indirectly we'll start growing what? People that have investment, that can be useful to them and also benefit them. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We have nothing but words of appreciation to our two guest lecturers today. They are professionals, I repeat, people that ordinarily, if not for the platform we both share, you might not have access to them. So take this word very importantly and work with them. For sisters, if you want to ask more about shares, speak to Aisha. For brothers, Onimago, stand up for recognition. And you can go to Uncle Onimago. Yes, the officer apology is also a broker, but you might be busy and let's still drive. Okay, he said he's not busy. Please call him. Don't call him only for road safety and expect me to say I don't have driver's license. You cannot call him for shares or stock investment advice. We will be rounding up for Salat Abdul and the next activity. We also want to add that some information has been shared here, and the way we can use this information is to break them down to as little as I must start something come January 2026. Even if it is 5,000 or 10,000 you want to use to build your stock portfolio now. Same thing for tax. If you are still not clear about anything around tax, we have in-house support capacity that you can draw information from. Ajia Shajaro is the tax consultant. I am the tax advisor. Oh yeah. So then, okay, Ajia, you have Balogun can also advise you on tax. Ajia